The following is intended for mature audiences only. Discretion is advised.
Thank you so much for downloading this episode of So What Do You Really Do? The podcast where I, your host, Deadair Dennis Maler, speak with entertainers about their day job. And all month long here in June, we are speaking with radio professionals, people who work in the radio industry, people that I've worked with in the radio industry. It's basically friends from radio. Last week we did Joanna Campbell, Josie, whatever you want to call her. Who used to work for Mix 106.5 in Baltimore, just recently lost her job, and she's on the hunt for a new full-time job. That was last week's episode. This week, we're speaking with my friend, Scott Lester, who is the morning show producer. He's one of the producers for the Kane Morning Show. He's the head producer for Club Kane, which is a weekend syndicated show. And he's also a musician. So by day, he's working behind the scenes in radio, making somebody else's voice be heard and broadcast it out to people at this point across the country. 11 syndicated shows, 5 days a week, and then 70 some cities throughout the country for the Club Kane show. He works every day to make that guy's voice be heard everywhere else, and then at night he's getting in front of the microphone and making everyone hear his voice as a singer and guitar player in his own band, his solo project, and his side band Letterbox. Or his solo project is the side band. It's still kind of confusing. We talk about it in the show. Scott is actually the guy who did my theme song for this show. So when you hear that music kicking in between my ramblings and the interviews, that's Scott who wrote that. And it's not even one of Scott's songs. He wrote that specifically for me. What had happened was when I wanted to do this podcast, I asked him, hey, can you write me a song? And actually what I wanted, the song I wanted to use was Disconnected by Face to Face. Just like the first 30 seconds. I'm not even a face-to-face fan, but I really like that song. It's a song kind of always makes me feel motivated after listening to it. I don't know what it is about the song, but it kind of makes me feel better. Makes me want to work harder. So I always like the first 30 seconds of that song, and I was like, I want to use that. But I, didn't. So what I did is like, hey, Scott, here's this song that I want. Can you do a ripoff of it? Just give me 30 seconds. And he sent me a great version, but it was too slow. So I just bumped up the tempo in the computer, sped it up a little bit. So it's more, like, okay, yeah, now this is the speed that I want this song to be. This is punk rock, sort of. It's kind of pop punk. All right, anyway. But Scott is, like I said, producer in radio. He came on in D.C. When I was not working in D.C. as often. Like I was doing 1 or 2 nights a week out of the building, just producing club events. So we would go to a club, broadcast the show. And I met Scott a few times then. I didn't really get to know Scott until he started working in Baltimore when they started syndicating the Kane show from DC up to Baltimore. And then we became good friends because we were both there in the mornings and we would talk and chat. And then since I've moved to Boston here, he is probably the person in Baltimore I speak to the most. Like my two best friends, my two best friends, Tony and Ryan, I don't talk to as much as I do Scott, but most of Scott and I's talk are about radio and how much I hate people. Like he's just a good sounding board for me to complain about other radio people and things with, which I do a little bit in the podcast, and you'll hear that. So I'm really glad I was able to get him on there. The funny thing about this podcast, and you'll hear it. We'll talk about it, but to give you the background on this, we actually recorded this over the phone from my studio to his studio at home. I have a home studio. He has a home studio for recording all his music. I have a home studio for podcasting. Guys, I'm really tired. I'm still tired. It's like 4 p.m. and I've been just laying around doing nothing because we had a comedy cookout yesterday here, and it was a good long day of fun and cooking and cleaning and everything else. So I'm very tired. But back to Scott. So I was in Baltimore in May for my birthday at the Term City Comedy Festival. And Scott and I were supposed to get together and have this event, and we were able to do this. We did it over the phone. He sent me his audio, so he recorded his conversation on his end. I recorded the conversation on my end. We spoke to the phone, and I just matched it all together, as one would do when you have the availability of this equipment. So it sounds great. I shouldn't have told you that now. I probably should have told you at the end of the podcast that. That way you would have oh, that sounded great. Like they were together. Oh, no, wait, they weren't? Zoinks, it sounds so great. But I think it sounds fine. Anyway, Scott and I, good friends, and I'm really glad we were able to get him on here because he is another person who's quintessential of what this whole podcast is about. Is by day he has a good, cool, interesting career job that he does, and then at night he's working at being a musician, trying to make it in that world as well. And he has a screwed up early morning schedule like I do. So when you're doing one performance at night, it goes late. You got to wake up early the next day. It's just a pain in the prick. So, and we get into a lot of deep radio talk. So if you ever want to know the inner workings of radio, if that's kind of a thing that's interesting to you, you're going to find this podcast very fascinating, I think, because we go deep into a lot of knowledge about some of the things we do, some of the things that happen in radio, how certain things work. We even talk pretty intensely about the music industry because we both have familiarities with the music industry. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Radio Month with my guests this week, radio producer and musician, Scott Lester. I'm working on, I think everything's working on my end. Are you getting any of my, are you recording any of me on your end?
What I'm going to do is I figured you could, my level needs to come up just a touch. That'll work. What was I saying? Oh, I figured what I'll do is I'll leave you in even if you give it a count, 3, 2, 1, and then I'll leave that on your end so it's easy to line up. And then, if you hear you on mine just in the very beginning, if you say, all right, we're going to start now, and I just leave that part of you on it, and then it's easy to line up rather than try and
Yeah, I mean, if you send it with me, with it in there, as long as as long as I'm a separate file to delete, separate track to delete out, yeah, that's fine. Actually, I'm already recording, and probably most of this tech talk is going to make it into the podcast because I don't do that much editing. So, welcome to Tech Talk with Deadair Dennis, and I guess on the show today is Scott Lester. Musician Scott. No, well, you're the only you're one of the few people I would have trusted to do this because you work in the same business. You work in radio just like I do. That's how we know each other. But you work in a studio enough. You have a studio at home that you've built because you're a musician. So you know enough of the technical stuff to be able to make this work. I feel like if I had to I don't want to do phone interviews with other people because I don't want to have the problem of, one, dealing with a conversation over the phone where we can't see each other and we can't play off each other's motions before we talk. So we'll end up accidentally walking over, stepping on each other, or doing one of these where I'll finish talking.
What?
Exactly, right? And then you'll start talking and then that's just stuff I had to edit out later. But so I knew you would be smart enough to be able to figure out to make it work. So I'm glad that we got to do this, even though I was just in town with you, in the same town as you, a month ago, and we couldn't coordinate schedules.
I had the stupidest, well, not the stupidest, ended up my dog had to go to the emergency vet, and it was the lamest excuse. I'm he's going to think I'm making stuff up. Which I wasn't.
No, when you called me and you were like, "Hey, my dog's sick," I was like, "Okay." The way you were describing, I was like, "Oh my god, is your dog having a seizure? That's serious?" It was just my dog was being, a whiny prick, and I took him there, and it turned out to be nothing. Then I'm like, okay, and you do have an adorable dog.
Yeah, he was. Sorry, I'm going to step all over you. Yeah, he was being stupid. Oh, he wasn't being stupid. He was shaking and wasn't eating, and I tried to give him potato chip, and if he won't eat a potato chip, then I know something's wrong because he loves potato chip. So, long story short, he's okay, and we really don't know what the problem was, but he's okay now.
Well, at least you have an adorable dog, and I've broken your balls about this for posting pictures about posting pictures of your dog on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, every day, couple times a day. At least you don't have your an Instagram account for your dog.
No, I'm not at that level. My wife has suggested it because enough people tell us he's cute. You should make money off him. I'm I fucking should make mony off him, but
well, if you're not gathering that many followers on your own Instagram from posting the pictures, I don't know if it would be the same with if he had his own.
Well, let's be honest. I think more people like the dog than they do me.
Oh, so. No, 1,000%, of course.
Yep.
No, there's definitely more people following you because there's look at this adorable little white fluffy thing.
Exactly. They don't care about what I'm doing, but if the dog does something funny, then people care. But yeah. I'm used to it.
So, all right. Let's get into the point of why I'll talk to you, because I'm actually this entire month only talking to, hopefully, talking to radio people. I was trying to get a big time guest that was in town from LA this week, trying to get him to do my podcast, and Zero reply back. So I was like,
Well, that's
I
fun.
figured as much. Yeah. Like, that's fun when you ask somebody to do your podcast and then they don't respond at all. But here's the thing that drives that I'm worried about. There's here in Boston, there's a guy who does a really popular podcast, another comedian who does a pretty popular podcast. And I'm always worried that if somebody comes into town and I ask them to do my podcast, they say, no, I don't have time to do it because I'm doing that other guy's podcast. And I'm like, no, you've stolen another guest from me.
Has it happened yet?
Yes. There was an author. There was a writer who was in town. I was trying to get him on my podcast, and we just didn't coordinate the schedules. And he was like, "Sorry, I'm already booked up." And then the next week came out. That guy was like, "Oh, today on my guest is writer blah blah blah." I was like, "You son of a bitch!" And I know the guy, and we're friends, so I just break his balls about it. I was like, "Yeah, now I have to compete. Not only do I have to compete with making myself and my podcast look professional, I have to compete with going against you, who actually has a professional podcast."
See, that's what I kind of run into the same problem, like musically. Like, I know there's other acts in this area more popular than I am, so I'm like, oh, do I even want to try and book a show? And I sound like such a whiny bitch, but that's another story for another day.
Oh, what's the point of booking a show when you know everyone's just going to go see that band instead?
Yeah. We try to avoid I try to avoid booking stuff when like anybody who's bigger or more popular than we are, which is pretty much everybody. Like, I'm not under any grand illusion, but so yeah, I just want to play for people. I don't even care.
Well, let's start talking about the music thing before we get into radio, because I'm assuming you rather be doing music than radio.
Well, yeah, I guess. Like, I love writing and recording and performing and singing and all that, everything that goes along with that. But I almost think that that's a more volatile industry than radio. And working in radio, you know how radio is. Like, you could have a great job and love what you're doing on Monday, and then come Tuesday, you're filing for unemployment. So
it happened to me. I had one of my best. I had a great week doing the morning show with Jackson there at Z, where you work, and then I come in Tuesday morning and they go, "Yeah, you're not going to be a part of the show anymore. So we're going to have to figure out what to do with you because we can't fire you."
We can't fire you.
Well, he didn't say that. It's like, you're not being fired. You're just not allowed to work on this show anymore. It's like, I might rather prefer you fire me, because now I have to come into work every day and look at the people that I'm not allowed to work with anymore.
It's so weird. Like, so, I mean, in a perfect world, would I like to do music? I mean, would I like to, write songs for people or for myself and have that be my main source of income, or, out on tour with, my own music? Sure. But I know that that's not a reality, especially, I mean, I'm 35 now. Okay. I'm not 20 and with long hair in a pop band where the money is. So I would still, I would like to write songs and stuff. That ship, I don't think, has sailed, because I think I write halfway decent songs, and I've had a couple super minor successes with that. But I mean, who knows? Day to day, I mean, I could get a phone call tomorrow from someone who heard one of my songs somewhere and be signed to a publishing deal with Sony Music. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But I mean, that's the kind of stuff I would love to do, because I don't have to leave the house. I can write and record here, and the checks would come in. That sounds like a perfect situation.
Oh yeah, not leaving your house and getting paid for it. Yeah, no, I think that's the American dream. That's the actual American dream.
Yeah, pay me so I can sit on my sofa. Like, that's like legit. Like, not draw off, whatever, but like earn the money, but also be able to kind of work from home, which would be fantastic.
Yeah. Now, when did you start? When was because you play guitar and you play a couple instruments like tangentially on your own, but your prominent thing is guitar, right?
Yeah, like mostly rhythm guitar and lead vocals for the band. I play piano and keyboards if we're working on like a demo, or there's a couple songs we have that have keys on it that I do, but I like to play drums, but I am nowhere near what I would consider a drummer, and I play bass when I have to. And I actually don't like playing bass, but it figures like if anybody ever needs a bass player, they'll like text me or email, "Hey, can you come play bass?" or "Do you want to do bass?" No, I'm not even all that good at it, but that's what I get asked to do the most for other people, and I don't get it.
Yeah, good bass players are hard to find. Well, bass players in general are hard to find. Good bass players are even more rare. So most people are
exactly.
looking for bass players all the time because everyone wants to be a guitar player. Nobody ever goes, you know what, I'm going to play with those big wide string ones. Like nobody ever says that.
If you ask any band, if you have friends in bands or whatever, ask them if their bass player is actually a guitarist. Because most bands I know, their bass player is just a guitarist who finally just went, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough that my brother is my bassist, and for whatever reason, when he was in college, he didn't take courses or anything in it, or he just wanted to play bass, and I had one, and he was like, "Can I take this to school?" I said, "Sure." And the next time I saw him, a couple months later, he was in state, so it's not like he was far away, but I walk in, he was staying with my parents during like the holidays. And I walk in the house and I hear bass playing. I'm like, what is Mom listening to? And I walk down the hallway and it's my brother playing like old Primus and King Crimson and old Chili Peppers, like funk stuff. And I'm like, where did this come from? And I need you to play bass for me tonight because my guy can't make it. And he ended up coming to rehearsal that day and he's been playing bass for me ever since.
When did you first pick up the guitar and start playing?
I was probably 15 or 16. And what I learned a C chord, and that's all I knew how to play for a while. And all I would do was just move it around the neck of the guitar, thinking I was writing songs, but really I was just playing one chord, not writing, but playing really shitty sounding music, and just, oh, this is awesome, and it wasn't.
So not even playing power chords, just playing power chord.
It wasn't even the power chord. It was like the open position. If any guitar players, they'll know what I'm talking about. But like the open C position chord, and I would just move it around. And so you've got like drony strings and stuff playing high on and it sounded awful. But that's all I knew at the time.
So were you playing any instruments before guitar, or do you just decided, like you told your parents, I want to learn to play guitar, and just started playing? Or did the guitar come from your parents? Was your dad a musician?
No, my parents are the most least musical people I know. Like I don't know where it came from, to be honest with you. When I was little, probably 7 or 8, they got me a keyboard it was either my birthday or Christmas. I don't even remember. And I had the little Casio keyboard that's 3 feet long, small, and it had the note stickers on it, so I knew what each note I was playing. And I played like the Disney, the Disney theme books and all those songs. And I played keyboards okay enough. I play what I call now big dumb rock piano because I still can't read music very well, but I can like compose on it, like my own stuff. But I started playing keys, and when I was 16, I think, 15 or 16, my friend got a guitar. I was like, oh, I want to learn that. And they eventually bought me my first electric guitar because I was playing on my mom's old acoustic that I didn't even know she had, with like rusty strings and strings that were like ½ inch off the fretboard. It was awful. So they finally, I guess, didn't want me to get tetanus from playing these rusty strings, so they bought me my own electric.
Yeah, musical equipment will get rusty pretty quick if you don't start playing it. Like there's my drum set before I left Baltimore to come to Boston. I sold my drum set, and I was never a good drummer. I was a 4/4 drummer at that. Like I was basically a live click track. That's the most I could handle on the drums. Just playing a 4/4 beat. That's it. An occasional cymbal crash, and that's it. Maybe a drum roll, but it has to be like super simple. Otherwise, I would lose the beat. But I sold mine, and it's just been sitting in the garage because I haven't been playing it. It was staying at my parents' house. I was not living with my parents, so it was there, and I didn't want to leave it with them. I couldn't take it to Boston, so I sold it. And when I sold it, I was like, I'm looking at it, and I bought it like for $400 from a pawn shop. It's not like it's right. All the drums are missing the front bottom heads and whatnot. Like the guy goes, I'll throw in a pair of sticks and a cymbal, or a pair of sticks and a throne for it. And I looked at it as like the throne could immediately just fold it under my own weight of 115 pounds. The sticks weren't even the matching size.
You set on it wrong, you'll never have kids.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up, putting another $100 into buying good cymbals, some gear and stuff like that. So anyway, when I sold it, I looked at it and I was like, yeah, a lot more rust on these drum heads, the bolts, than there was when I bought this thing, because it was just sitting there doing nothing, just rusting away. I miss it. I wish I could play it again. I wish I had a drum set to play up here, especially now that the apartment I live in, I have a basement. I could just put a drum set in the basement. Actually, there was a drum set in the basement when I moved in here, And one of my
What?
roommates is also a musician. Yeah. We were both looking at her like, dude, why don't we? It had no hardware. It was just the shells. Like, dude, let's go buy some hardware off Craigslist. We'll set it up. Your band can practice down here. I can play on the drums. We'll see if we'll make sure the neighbors don't care because they're a bunch of potheads, and I'm sure they don't care about anything. So let's use this drum set that's here because it's been here for years and nobody's claimed it. And then we went down there one day and it was gone because the landlord came in and cleared out a bunch of stuff and just threw it away. And it's like, no, free drum set.
Was it a decent? Do you know if it was a decent like brand or was it just some sort of knockoff something?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't remember what it was. But if I don't remember what it was, which means it was probably a nothing. Yeah, it was definitely wasn't like a Tama, which is everyone's my first brand name drum set.
My buddy found a snare drum that retails normally for right around $500 or $600 in a dumpster outside of his apartment. And he called me one afternoon. This was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. He goes, "Hey, have you ever heard of such and such drums?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" He goes, "Well, I just went out to take the garbage out, and it's a purple this brand is Maryland Drum Company. He's like a purple drum sitting out near the dumpster. Should I get it?" I'm like, "Yeah, go get it." So he goes and gets it, and he was living in, I was living in like White Marsh. He was living in like Bethesda, so 50-ish minutes away. I'm like, "Next time you're up here, bring it." So he brought it. Like an idiot, I should have just been like, "Yeah, hang on to it." He ended up Googling it, realizing that it wasn't a cheap drum. He goes, "I'll sell it to you for $200." And it was in great shape. And I use it all the time here, like if I'm playing or if I'm demoing something. And we both made out pretty well. He got $200 for dumpster diving, and I got a $600 snare for a third of the price. But I have no idea. I assume it was a pissed off girlfriend or something who just decided, you know what, I'm going to throw this away because it was in great shape. Nobody would throw away. People sell crap for more. Yeah, I don't understand why it was in the dumpster, but somebody's loss was my gain.
That is the worst part, though, is your brother finds something and then sells it to you. He finds it for free in the trash and then sells it to you, his own brother, and going, "Hey, you know what? I made nothing off this. Here, you can have it. You're gonna use it." No, it's like $200, bro. Like, that's just
right. I mean, somebody's got to make money somewhere, I guess. I just wish it would be me.
Yeah, no, you made out on the deal. You got a good drum head for free, for cheap, but yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine selling something that I found in the trash to my own brother. Like, I would have taken it home and sold it on Craigslist or eBay or something like that, but not, I don't even like my own brother. I wouldn't sell him something that I got for free.
Hey, I can't fault it for it.
Especially since he's in your band.
Right. Well, yeah. You know what? I need to bring this back up. Like, hey, what the hell, man? You owe me. You owe me something. But it's I guess it's been too long now. I've had the thing for a couple of years.
Well, this is what it is. Like, you go, next time you go to pay him for a gig or a session or something, you go, "Hey, you remember that drum head that you found in the dumpster that I paid you money for? I'm paying myself back by keeping your money from the gig."
We're not splitting anything.
So you started playing, my first Casio keyboard. It was 7 or 8 years old, and then progressed to playing guitar at 15. Did you just start playing on your own, or were you one of those people that took lessons? Because you said you don't really read sheet music.
No, not really. I took lessons from. Let's see. I took lessons, I guess, starting around. I was maybe 20 or 21. So I had 5-ish years of horribly teaching myself how to play. Like, I learned, I didn't just know one chord throughout that time. I advanced on from my one C chord that I learned. And I started writing songs and learning really shitty songs. The first song I ever learned, like, complete on guitar was a Poison song. So what's that tell you? And I played on my own for a while, took lessons for a while, for a couple of years, probably 4 or 5 years. And I've actually gone back and taken a lesson here and there from the same guy that I learned with initially, just to kind of, if I feel like I'm getting in a rut, like writing or playing, and I'm like, I just need a kind of a refresher to kind of challenge my thinking. I'll go back and I'll take maybe a couple weeks or a couple months worth of lessons just to learn stuff. But no, I can't really read. I can read better for piano than I can guitar, but for somehow I've actually made it work and put out an album and write songs without being able to really read or understand. Music theory is just beyond me. Like, I have a friend who talks theory. He's like, "Oh, how did you write this song this way? Because you're doing this and this to here." I'm like, it sounds good to me. I don't know. Like, don't try to talk theory to me because I'll just go, oh yeah, I'll fake it as long as I can. But once people ask me questions, I don't have any clue. Okay, I've got friends are texting me about the Orioles game, which I have on. I have my Pro Tools screen on one computer that I'm recording this on, and the Orioles game on another computer screen, streaming from my living room because I'm downstairs in my studio. Nerd, but
Well, yeah, you enjoyed the baseball. That's a clear thing. Yeah, did you ever do season tickets?
This is our second year.
Oh, second year of having season tickets?
Yeah, but we just did a 13 game plan. We don't do like the whole people who do a complete. Yeah, like a 81 games. I don't have the money. I work in radio. B, I don't have the time. So.
Well, yeah, because I know Mike Jones used to have season tickets. I think it was season tickets, or he bought like every Sunday game and Friday night game or something like that. I don't remember. Because he's also a huge O's fan, Mike Jones over at DC 101. Which I don't know. Have you ever met Mike Jones?
I've not met him. I just know of him from other people, but I've not met him before. Like, I don't think I've officially met him before. I've met him in like passing, but never actually had a conversation with him.
Yeah, he's a huge O's fan. But that's, again, we'll go back to music in a second, but let's talk about this. That's the weird thing about radio is you work in a building with, 8 stations, right? Is that what was in there before? We got, 5 FM and 3 AMs that are no longer of the same company? Is Red Zebra still at 1801?
It is. I wasn't sure if you were talking DC or Baltimore, but yeah, Red Zebra's
yeah,
still down
that's
there,
right. Because you're also in 2 different markets as well. Because you're in Baltimore with POCZ, the gospel station, which is an AM, and then Jack, which is an FM. So it's 3 FMs, 1 AM, right?
Yeah, that's what's in Baltimore, and then I
DC,
split my
there's
time
8.
Monday through Friday. I'm in Baltimore handling like the syndication end of a morning show, and then
the Kane
Sundays,
show. We could say it. It's fine. I'll give Kane the plug.
Yeah.
I don't.
He's a great dude to work with. And I've been there doing this for 6 years or so. And on Sunday nights, same host, Kane, does a nationally syndicated. It's more music focused than like a typical, like, it's not as many bits and call-in features and stuff. It's more like it's a top 40 request show, and that's on. But I do that out of our DC-based studio. So I'm a bon vivant, a radio bon vivant, if you will, a man about town. But I forgot that actually the Red Zebra stations were downstairs at 1801. I didn't.
Yeah, well, that's because you're only there on Sunday night, so there's no reason for you to go down to that floor because we own nothing on that floor anymore. But right. The other thing is you're only there on Sundays, so you're working on a show that probably brings the stations and the company more money than most of the other shows. Like the Kane show on Sundays, or whatever, Club Kane on Sundays, brings in, it's probably, let's say, in the top 5 biggest money-making shows in our building. Not in the company, not worldwide, but in our in that building at 1801. Well, let's count all 12 stations. Out of all 12 stations, let's not say 12, let's say 9, because it's 5 FMs and 5 FMs that belong to us. Let's forget about Red Zebra. Don't even know why I brought up Dan Snyder's radio stations, but we have 5 FMs, and then we have 3 FMs in Baltimore and 1 AM, so we have 9 stations. Out of those 9 stations, Club Kane's probably one of the top 5 biggest money bringing in shows, correct?
I would. I don't know about the Sunday show, but the Kane's morning show, I would say, yeah.
But yeah, so you're working on a show that brings in a ton of money for the company, and then nobody knows who you are because you never see them. That's one of the things that's weird about radio is you're an integral cog in the machine for this particular company that we both worked for in this building, and you don't see the other people, and the other people don't see you. That's kind of a weird thing. You know what I mean?
Especially because, well, the hours are weird for one. Like if we're talking just like the Monday through Friday part, mornings, obviously I get there. The show starts at 6 and I'm there before that. Most office staff or whatever, they're obviously not there that early. And I was in the elevator.
Most of the sales staff is not even awake at 6 a.m.
Right. Well, I was in the elevator. I can't remember. This was maybe a year ago. And to be fair, I don't know who she was either. But she goes to me, "Aren't you the web guy?" And I was like, "No, She goes, "Oh, well then never mind." No, I'm not the web guy.
Because she was going to ask you a question about a computer. That's why. She didn't care about who you were. She was like, you know what? My laptop's is acting up. Is there any chance you could come over and take a look at it? Thinking that because if you do the websites, you know how to fix a computer.
Right, which I'm sure they all think that way. And then there was one guy giving, I would assume it was a client, like a tour through the the floor where all our stations are, and he's pointing out, here's such and such, here's such and such. And I had the studio door open, and he walks past, he goes, and I can hear him because he's 10 feet away, and he goes, and that's, yeah, I don't know who that is. Keep going. And then he just kept walking down the hallway. I'm like, cool, man, nice to see you. And I don't know who he is either, so again, I'm just as bad. But I refer to everybody from what they look like. So to me, I call him David Wallace, like if you were a fan of The Office. He looks like the boss, like the big boss from Dunder Mifflin on The Office. I don't know who he is, but he looks to me just like David Wallace from The Office. So in my mind, that's who he is.
You know, that's the worst part. I have because I worked in that building and I saw a lot of people. My mind started going through, all right, I know what David Wallace looks like. Who does he look like back there in that building? And I was like, haven't been there 3.5 years. There's not a chance I remember, A, if I knew who it was, or I was going to remember who it was, or who it is, or two, even be able to come up with it because it's probably somebody new. Yeah, but you don't have to deal with sales staff because you're not a on-air member of the station, technically. I mean, weren't you doing a weekend shift?
I would do if I did one, because it was the perfect storm. Like the person who did middays on our station couldn't for whatever reason, or she was sick. She called in sick like the night before. So
Katrina,
the
right?
number one, but no, Elizabethany.
Oh, that's right. Elizabethany has the job now. That's right. It was. Yeah, because the lineup at the station now is Kane, Elizabethany. Might as well just be Hot 99.5 Junior. Afternoons is Rob Cruz, who used to be the night guy at Hot 99.5. And then nights, is it still Julian, who used to be the night guy at Hot 99.5 and he's doing it from Chicago. Isn't it still Julian at nights?
It's not. It's a syndicated. Well, it's not. It's Romeo, who's out of New York, but he does a custom show for our station. So he's not in our building, but he's it's the show is specifically tailored for our station. He does that for a few stations now, but he's not in our building.
Okay, so they got rid of Julian, but that was the weird thing is that pretty much the entire station was staffed by, or the entire on-air staff at one point was essentially just all former Hot 99, current or former Hot 99.5 employees, which is our sister station in DC. It might as well just, close down the entire format and just pump the same music up there if they're going to go that cheap. But let's not give them any ideas. So anyway.
Well, let's not do that because I work. I don't want to have to drive to DC every day. But the one time that I did fill in, like, I am under no illusions of the fact that I was like the fifth person asked to do it. But it was Elizabethany called in sick. And then the person that usually backs up her is somebody named Katie. Katie was on vacation. And then they asked
in Florida,
Rose,
right?
who's
Katie
on,
Summers?
Yeah, Katie's in Tampa.
Yeah, Tampa. She's actually really good. She was voice tracking for us weekends, and then she would fill in on the week. And she's actually really good. And I enjoyed always editing her shows when I'd have to, because she's actually really good, which is, we'll get into me talking about how much I hate other radio people. But so Katie couldn't do it. They asked Rose, who's the fourth chair on Kane show.
Yeah, she's like our young, like the female voice on the Kane show, and she had like an event or something and couldn't do it, and then our program director was on he had like not a sales call, but yeah, I guess it was, he had to go meet a client for a prospective buy or something, so he wasn't in the building, so I guess he would have done it. So he was like, look, I know this is something you typically don't do, but and we were doing contesting during that shift, so somebody couldn't just go jockless. So I was like, yeah, sure, I will. And they let me know this at it was like 9:15 and the show started at 10. So I'm like, yeah, let me get ready to do an air shift for the first time in like 4 years. But yeah, sure.
And, 45 minutes to prep for a 4-hour air show that's live.
But I managed to pull it off. He was listening to it on the way back to the office, and he goes, which rightfully so, he said, I sounded not so sure of what I was doing in the beginning, just a little hesitant, which I was. But towards the end of it, he's like, he told me you could feel like I was finally on a roll with it, which I would like to do that kind of stuff again. Like, I'd like to do some fill-in stuff. Like, I'm busy enough that I don't know if I would want to do a full-time air shift or every day from 3 to 7 or that kind of thing. But not right now. But for fill-in stuff or a weekend thing every now and then, I think it would be fun.
And you did all your breaks live. You didn't even have a chance to record it, did you?
No.
You should. That's the dumb thing that they. I mean, bless Rob's heart for letting you for going. Hey, you should be able to handle this. Go ahead and handle it. But like, I would just say, hey, go ahead and voice track it. That way, we're more sure of you not screwing something up.
The first few breaks I had to do as live as I could. Like, I would do those live. And then once I kind of had 3 or 4 in the can and then music and commercials, I was able to start working ahead. So the whole thing wasn't 100% live. The first maybe half hour I did, live. Once I was able to have like a music buffer, I got 15 minutes of music. Cool. Now I can work ahead. That's what I ended up doing. And I think that's when I started to feel a little more comfortable, because if I said something stupid, I didn't have to live with it. I could go, I can do this a little bit better. So I would attempt to.
Yeah. So just to explain what voice tracking is. Voice tracking is essentially just recording your voice, just recording your breaks into the automated system that runs the entire radio station. Like, I wonder if there's still people who still believe that radio stations aren't ran by computers. Like, I can't, like, I was probably in middle school. I was in high school when I started thinking about how I can make a computer program to run a radio station. Like, I was trying to build that at home on my own well before I even started working in the business. So I assume other people have to think the same thing. I mean, I don't know. When you tell people you work in radio, do they still think that you're dropping a needle on vinyl?
They don't think it's that bad. Some people ask, where's the music? I said, what do you mean? Like, what are we playing CDs? Some people think it's still CD, which unless you're in like a small, super small, like maybe a college station that doesn't have the budget of like of a bigger station. Most people now know that it's from like a computer database, but there's a lot of people who still think that anybody you hear on that station, like if you flip on, I don't know, a station right now in Poughkeepsie, New York, and you hear somebody speaking, doing their show, I know a lot of people who think that person is actually in that building at that time, which as well as I do, a lot of people you hear, they might be on in Poughkeepsie and San Diego at the exact same time. Well, they're not doing that by magic.
No, yeah. They're basically recording their audio into a computer, and then the computer distributes it out. So granted, you were doing your breaks live. Kane does his breaks live in DC. But yeah, not that. I mean, to think that the voice you're hearing is local and live, that makes sense. You should think that way. But to think that the music is not coming from a computer system, I think is silly in this day and age. But
I mean, I guess if I asked my grandmother, like, hey, where do you think the music's coming from on the radio? She wouldn't go, oh, well, it's coming from a server that's fed into the studio through a database. If she said that, I would pass out right on the floor. But I mean, the fact that some people, I guess techier people go, what format is it? And what's the sample rate? And I'm like, all right, calm down a little bit. Let's not get crazy. But
nobody has ever asked me in 16 years what the sampling rate is. In fact, I've explained sampling rate to other engineers, and they just give me confused looks. So I don't think anyone's ever asking the sample rate. I hope not.
I don't even know the answer to that. I know that the audio is a wave file, but that's it.
44.1 kilohertz.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Now I know,
that's CD
and I've
quality.
worked in this damn business forever.
Well, also everything that's the minimal quality for CD quality. Yeah, all right. Now I'm getting geeky. Like, we had 10 minutes of tech talk up at the beginning of the show.
I know. I'm sorry.
Let's not let Dennis go off the rails on tech nerd stuff. So, all right, so you got to do an air shift occasionally. If there was a weekend thing, you would do it. Let's go back to talk about music, because we're now at your early 20s. Were you playing in bands when you were in high school? Because that's usually when most people start playing in bands is in high school. You picked up the guitar in high school. Did you immediately move into a band, or?
I formed my first band it's probably my junior year, and our first show was, so we got together in like my junior year, and we played really nowhere except our drummer's basement. And then our first like real show, I guess, we played our high school talent show, and we played a Metallica song. And my mom or somebody still has a recording of it that I kind of refused to watch. I wasn't singing at the time. I was just playing rhythm guitar. But we played. It was 1999, and we played Metallica's Enter Sandman at our high school talent show. That was our first quote unquote show. It wasn't really a show. It was first like public performance because we only played one song. It's not like we did a whole set.
That's the worst part, is like lugging all your equipment onto that stage to play one song, and then 3.5 minutes. Well, if it's Metallica, 7.5 minutes later, lugging it back off stage.
Right. So, I mean, we did, for a bunch of 17, 18-year-old kids, I guess we did all right. But I try not to. I would like to go back and watch it again. I haven't watched it in probably at least 12 or 13 years. It's been, I don't even know. I assume that they still have that VHS cassette somewhere and something to play it on. But yeah, I don't really want to relive that. But yeah, that was the first show we played. And then we primarily did covers for a while because nobody could write their own music after that, like into like the beginning of college. The whole band was different because I guess we all ended up hating each other, like most bands do. And we just played, cover shows or throw in an original here and there. And eventually somebody started writing their own songs, and I don't even know how I ended up singing. Nobody initially wanted to sing because everybody was too self-conscious to do it.
Which is the weirdest thing, because most singers in bands are the most egotistical, self-centered people, which you're not. But most singers, like, they can't, the type of person that becomes a singer has to be the front of that band. They have to be a singer. So to hear that a band formed together and nobody was like, okay, yeah, I'll sing, that you always like, no, which is, I think, is the biggest public fear, is singing in front of people. I think that might be one of the biggest, mass fears of people, to not be able to find somebody in your band who was like, yeah, no, I can do this. That's very
me.
unusual to hear.
It was none of it. Even at rehearsal, like our guy who was singing, my friend Jeff, who now actually, I don't even think he plays music anymore. He got married, moved to Texas. But when we were, even rehearsal, so we're just playing for each other, the other 4 or 5 guys in the room, he would have like a hat on, like down, like almost over his face, and the mic underneath that. So we couldn't even see his face when he was singing. And it was just us. Like, we all knew what we were trying to work towards. Like, we wanted to be a band and play shows and write songs and stuff, and still we didn't want to sing in front of each other. That's a pretty big problem if you're trying to make music.
Yeah, if you can't handle singing alone in a room with just your other bandmates, you're not going to be able to do it on stage.
No, you're not gonna hack it. And then years later, it was probably 2005, 2006, the group that we were playing together had enough songs to record an album, and we went to this studio, which we had no business being in, because it was a studio where, like, they worked on, like, some Jason Mraz stuff and Dave Matthews stuff, and, like, we had no business being in this building. But I ended up finding the guy on MySpace, so that tells you what year it was. And I sent him a message. I was like, yeah, a lot of the stuff you've worked on I really like. Your studio looks great, whatever. And we ended up booking some time, going there, and essentially being terrible and wasting 2 days. We got some good drum takes out of it, but for the most part, we weren't seasoned enough or knew what we were doing enough to make it worth our while. So the producer was like, look, if you guys really want to do this, work on your vocals, work on the way you're playing. And he didn't say it in a mean way, just in a way that, look, if you guys really want to make a record and something you're proud of, you got to work on it. And that was kind of the tipping point for the band, I guess, at that point, because the guy who was singing most of the songs decided I don't think he wanted to put that much more effort into it. Yeah, I mean, and I can't fault him for that. If you're not 100% passionate about it, then why do anything? And I ended up coming home. We were in Virginia, so we were maybe 2.5 hours away from home. So I remember coming home that weekend, and then the next week booking, starting to take vocal training with somebody, and who I still see periodically to this day, so 10, 12 years later. I think that made all the difference. Like, I didn't want to be terrible. I wanted to put out music that I was proud of, and it was work in the beginning to play our own music, but it ended up, I think, paying off dividends.
So you take some guitar lessons. You taught yourself piano with a little stick on things. You got a guitar, took lessons, and now, and in your early to mid 20s, you started taking vocal lessons, which, you occasionally go back to. Same thing with guitar lessons. When did you decide to go solo and become, Scott Lester and what army, or whatever it is you decided to call yourself now? Because I had you do the theme song for this, and I was like, do you want me to credit it as Scott Lester and what army? And you're like, nah, just say Scott Lester and link it to this. Like, because you were changing band names again, which, how do you change a band name when you're the only member of the band?
Well, I ended up sort of changing it. Like, Scott Lester and What Army was the name I gave the project of the album that I put out, because it was essentially me and my brother, because my brother played bass and sings a bit, like backing vocals. So I ended up recording everything except drums here at my house. So it was essentially a solo project for me. So I had no intentions of ever, at that point, putting together another band and going out and playing these songs. I just was like, I wanted to, for me, finally put out some music that I was proud of. So I decided, once I was talking to a friend of mine about it and showing him the track list and all of the people that I had help me. So I had probably 4 or 5 different guitar players, 2 different drummers, like a keyboard player. So the track, or the credit list, was probably 10, 12 people deep. And he goes, it's going to take you an army to go play this thing. He's like, that's what you should call the band. And a friend of mine actually suggested Scott Lester and What Army. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like that. So I ended up doing that, as I kind of give that the name as anything I do outside of a band now. And since that record came out, I've put together an actual band. So we've changed the name from what was a solo project to a band. So I essentially, as confusing as shit as this sounds, have 2 projects. The Scott Lester and What Army project, which is pretty much anything I do not with a group. And then the band now is called Letterbox. And whenever we go out as a band or work on stuff as a band, it's called that.
So anything solo is Scott Lester and What Army. Okay.
Scott Lester and What... And I'm working on a new, I don't think the band knows this, so, but I'm working on a brand new Scott Lester and What Army song right now that I've actually had the guy who did drums on the record play for me. And he, in his day job, he's a writer and producer in he's either in Memphis or Nashville, I can't remember. But when he's not at his studio, he's on tour with Kelly Clarkson playing drums for her. So his musical day job is a bit better than me writing songs in my basement, but he's a great dude to work with, and he did drums on 8 of the 11 songs on my album, and now he's doing this one. I'm just decided to do like a one-off thing on my own again, and he played drums on that and killed it, so I can't wait to actually put this tune out.
All right, well, with Letterbox, is Letterbox playing all new songs, or are you playing the same songs you did on the first solo album?
We initially were playing some of those songs, but we've written a bunch of new stuff, and we're kind of trying to transition from playing what I dubbed the solo Scott material. We've got a bunch of other stuff that we're working on now, and musically it's a little bit different too. So hopefully I can run 2 projects at the same time. But I'm sure somebody's going to get pissed at something, or why did you do that song solo and not with us, or why did such and such? It's inevitable, but at that point, I'm just going to go, what are you going to do? Are you going to quit? Because I'm still going to make music, so I'll deal with that when it happens.
Yeah, there's a lot of... just in music, it's natural jealousy. Like we're not jealous people, musicians, but we have that tendency to look at artists in general, especially musicians, to go, all right, well, you wrote a really good song. Why did you keep that really good song for yourself and not let us play with it,
Right. And let's be honest, like, being in a band is trying to keep, I mean, I've never done this, so I'm guessing. It's like having 4 girlfriends. It's trying to keep everybody happy at the same time and not, piss somebody off with something stupid. And it never happens. At some point, no matter how good the camaraderie is or how good the chemistry is, at some point someone's going to get pissed about something, and it's not going to go well.
All right, so now you're doing your solo project, you're doing the band. Let's talk about radio, because, you're already a musician. Being a musician, is that what attracted you to radio in the first place when you were younger?
I I think so. Like when I was in college, I had to do a field project, which was basically like like an internship. You had to do something in your major that kind of pertained to your graduation requirements. So
what was your major?
I majored in mass communications, as general and vague as that is, but that's what my major was. And then
at University of Maryland, right?
No, I wish. I only have an associate's degree, and I went to school at Harford Community College in Bel Air in Harford County.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did that, and it changed my major to mass comm. Ended up working, quote unquote, for free at the college radio station there, and doing a really horrible show every Tuesday from 4 to 6. It was fun. I did some stuff that they weren't, like stupid radio stuff that whatever. But I ended up interning at a station in Baltimore that CBS Radio owns. And I was there for...
You could say the name of the station, Scott. You don't have to...
No, I don't even want to because I don't work for them anymore. But I worked there for 5 years. Worked there for 5 years from like
that's the thing. I know that you worked for Mix 106.5. Like you could just say that. Dude, I had a coworker. I just released a podcast with your coworker the other day. Like I get it. People across the country is not going to care what the station is, but why not say
it? That's true. Well, because they laid me off.
Well, let's go into that because you were an intern there and then you got hired in. What did they hire you for? Because usually when people are interns at radio stations, there's like 3 types of internships. There's promotion intern, where you go around to the events and you hand out stickers and make people sign up for contests and stuff like that, and wear the shirt and be all bubbly and say, "Hi, do you like Mix 106?" Or the second one is you're interning for one of the either the morning show or the afternoon show, where depending on what the station and format is, you're either answering phone calls and passing it on to them, or you're just doing dumb bits for the morning show that make them laugh because they're making you do stupid human tricks. Or you're a programming intern, which means you just follow around the program director all day and watch them schedule music.
Pretty much. I was in morning show intern, and then when I got hired part-time initially. I would spend a couple days a week with the morning show and then a few days with like doing promotion. So like they were getting me hours, but I was kind of splitting it between doing the promotions thing and then doing
but still working part-time, right? Eventually,
say again?
You were doing both jobs, but only part-time, right?
Right. So it wasn't my first like foray into full-time radio work, but they ended up hiring me full-time to be the morning show producer when they made some personnel changes for the show. So one of the
personnel changes.
We'll call it that. It used to be called the JoJo and Kenny Show back in like the 90s. And Kenny ended up leaving the station, and the guy who was producing the show ended up being the second voice on the show. So there was an opening for the producer. So they asked me if I'd be interested in that. I said yes. The money was awful, but I did that full-time for probably 3.5 years. And then in the typical radio, the way that you were a budget cut, but in 2008, November 2008, I was a budget cut with like 20 other people. They just kind of did a nice bloodletting of a huge part of the staff, which was fun. My first time being, call it what it is, laid off, fired, canned, let go, whatever. I just remember coming home and sitting on my couch in my apartment and went, what the hell am I going to do now?
Like, I feel like if I get fired today, like I've been in the business 16 years, 13 years with the same company. If I get fired tomorrow, I don't see me being able to get another job in the business ever again. Like that. And that's very common. You have, people who are well-known local celebrities on the station, and then they lose their job. They get fired for whatever reason, and then they become a real estate agent. Like they are never going back to the business again, whether they want to or not, which is a weird thing to be in.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like I know a lot of people, like the guy that I was talking about, Kenny, who used to be on the morning show, he was let go. I guess it was 2004, maybe 2005. I can't even remember. It's like 2003, 2004ish, but I don't think he's worked here and there in radio since, but to be a full-time morning show host again, I don't think he's done that. I kind of lost touch with him a little bit. He's up, I think, near Erie, Pennsylvania now, but I don't even know what he's doing. I know for a while he was doing like sales, and then it's just so weird how somebody can go from being the marquee talent on it's Baltimore, so let's say mid-market morning show, I guess.
Yeah, pretty big city. It's not New York, but it's not, we'll keep going back to Poughkeepsie and making fun of them. We'll keep picking on
Nothing
Poughkeepsie.
But love for you, Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, I mean, Baltimore's a pretty major city. There's a lot of people here. If you're the number one morning show, there's a lot of people who know who you are.
Right, exactly. And for him to go from that to not being in radio anymore, it just seems weird to me. But I wasn't sure if I would get back into it, partially by my own choosing, but partially because there's, how many people go to school for mass comm and how many people want to, quote unquote, be in radio, which I don't even think they know what that means when they say it. But there's so many people who want to do that or be in the industry, but there's, a tenth of a percentage of the amount of jobs for it, especially with, like we were talking about before, like voice tracking, where one person can do a show on 10 stations
cities,
and kind of cut down the budgets for those smaller markets, because a lot of smaller stations, if you're in New York and LA or Chicago, sure, you have huge big staffs, but a lot of stations don't have the money to have a full staff, especially if it's a small market.
Yeah, and that's kind of the good and the bad about the business. Is the good of it is, hey, technology's got to the point to where we can do so much more, but the bad is the companies just looked at it as a way of saying, oh, that's how we can save money by not hiring people. So we don't hire people. The people who are working end up having to work for less because they need the job, and they're going to pay them less because they'll find anybody else to do the job because we're all hungry for work. So it's this terrible position that we're all in. We're accepting shitty pay to do more work because there's not enough jobs anyway.
It's a blessing and a curse, like the technology part of it, because working where I do now with iHeart, I think the technology end of it is 10 times better than where I was before. Like for example, like if I need to check on something at the station right now, I can pull up that computer from home and look at it, and if I need to add this or take out that, you can do it from here. I don't know if that's something that's is easily accessible to other companies or whatever, but the technology part I think is great. But yeah, sometimes it's like a double-edged sword. Like I work for one of those stations, or excuse me, one of those shows that's on a lot of stations at once. People kind of hate that because they'll think, oh, you're taking local jobs being on the syndicated show. And what I say being on it, I'm not one of the voices on it. I'm one of the people behind it working for it as a producer. But I mean, I can see both sides of the coin, which is kind of weird. Like I understand like a lot of people don't like the syndicated stuff because it takes away the quote unquote local aspect of radio. But I also see from the station and the owner like rationale, like why they're doing it, because they have to save money.
Yeah, on the technology side, like it's gotten to the point where I literally can run the station from my cell phone, like 1,000%, not exaggeration. I've been at home when I've heard the station go off the air when I was working in Baltimore. Heard the station go off the air, brought up the computer on my phone, and then boop, hit it, went and started playing the music again from my cell phone from home. Dude, I've recorded here in Boston. We had a power out at the building I work at. I brought up we have a we have a website that we enter all the traffic information into that the reporters read off of. So I brought that site up on my on my cell phone, popped over to the audio recorder, hit record, brought up the site, handed it to my reporter, had her read a report into my cell phone, took it back, stopped it, edited the track, emailed it to the station that she needed to do the report for, and they played it, and they had no idea it was done on a cell phone. It sounded as good as she did it in the studio, and that's how far we've gotten with so much technology that we have a device that can do that great of a job one. And two, we have technology that accepts that kind of hardware, and that we have computers that will work in conjunction with my cell phone. Dude, I have an app, Clear Channel, iHeartMedia, developed an app that will automatically, that you could record your voice into, and then it automatically loads it into the system back at the studios. It was designed for a news station, so you'd go out on a report, and instead of having to hook up an ISDN or a wireless device or using a cell phone, or, calling on the cell phone, you would open the app, record your report, couple taps later, boom, automatically enters itself into the system at the studio. Nobody has to do the work for you. Like, that's freaking insane.
And there's still people who think we're playing stuff off CDs.
Yeah, I know. Like, here in Boston, I could still bring up the studio computers at Z1043 in Baltimore and control what music's being played. Like, I've edited mix shows.
What?
Yeah, I can do. I still have to. I'm 1,000% sure I can still do it. Like, I would do it right now just to prove it, but I'm not gonna attempt the fate. I'm not gonna, because if I log in, the only person who can do that, they know it's me. There's only three people who are mentally capable of doing this, and I'm one of those three people. All you have to do is turn to the other two engineers and go, "Did you log into our system?" And they go, "No." All right, it must have been Dennis, and then I'm in trouble. So I'm not going to do it, but I could do it if I wanted to. I know all the passwords still. They never change those passwords. And it's one of those weird things, like when I left to come up here, they changed the social media account passwords. Because it's like, I'm still working for the company. I'm in a different city and a different division. Why change the passwords? So when those bloodbaths happen, and that sometimes they happen pretty frequently, depending on where you're at. Like in DC, I went through. It felt like a bloodbath once a year or once every other year. That somewhere in some quadrant of the building, they were letting a handful of people go for no reason, whether it be sales staff, on-air staff, or whatever. So they email out. Say what?
It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good lately.
Yeah, we've had since the biggest bloodbath that happened when I was with the company in DC was Obama's inauguration day. So that's almost 8 years ago. That was a huge one. Which the thing about that was I was at the inauguration doing a live broadcast with Whitney from DC 101, and it was her, me, and I can't remember who was on boards in the studio. But basically, the three of us were petrified that we were going to be let go, and we weren't going to find out till after the show. Like, we're down there on inauguration day, interviewing people, and talking about, hey, here comes the cavalcade of President Barack Obama, yeah, and doing whatever things we were doing, and then turning off the mics and looking at each other like, so do you think they're going to tell us over the phone? Like, are they going to email us that we're fired and then expect me to bring all this equipment back if they do so? Like, what do you think is going to happen?
That's an unsettling ass feeling. Like, you're like, are we going to find out? Are we going to find out?
Yeah, and meanwhile, we're watching, Whitney's getting texts from other people about who's being let go at what time, and she's going, all right, when am I going to get the text from one of my friends saying he overheard I'm being fired? Like, it's so frustrating and nerve-wracking when you see these things coming, and then you just have to sit and wait. I don't even know if that's worse. I don't know if it's knowing they're going to do a bunch of firing and sitting there waiting to be fired is the worst, or the worst is how I found out channel 1043 flip formats. The way I found out was I found out when it happened. Like, I found out I was working in DC again with DC 101 and still working up there at Baltimore at 1043 before you came on. And I'm working there on the morning show at DC, which we were broadcasting on the same station up in Baltimore, same thing that you're doing. And the morning show host, Elliot, comes on and goes, hey, by the way, if you're listening to the show in Baltimore at 10 o'clock, they're going to switch away and they're going to go to music, and there's going to be no more Elliot in the morning in Baltimore. You can just switch your radio to DC 101. From now on, always just switch your station to DC 101. You can still hear us. But you're not in Baltimore, you're not going to hear us on 1043 anymore. And I went, it's 10:15. What? Huh? I'm calling my boss, emailing him and texting him going, dude, am I going to have a job when I walk out this door? Like, what's happening? Why is this going on? What's happening? He's not answering me. He's like, I'll get back to you. So I leave after the show, drive back up here because I live in Baltimore, drive all the way back up to Baltimore because I had to do that anyway. Drove into work, walked in his office and went, dude, what the fuck is going on? Why won't you tell me what's happening? Like, I don't know which is scarier, is waiting to be fired or not knowing that you're fired until it happens?
For me, when it happened to me in '08, I had the blind side. So I guess that was worse. Maybe. See. I don't know.
I mean, when I was blindsided, when I got thrown off Jackson's Zone, blindsided by that, yeah, that's probably the worst, because I went literally. I don't know what you did after you got fired, but what I did when I got thrown off a show, I wasn't even fired. I got taken off a show. I went to a bar, got hammered, drove drunk home, which I should not have done. They should not have let me leave. I left, and it's not even like midnight. I'm sloshed by 4 p.m. because it was a morning show. So I was fired at like 10:30 in the morning. I went to the bar as soon as they opened and just drank all afternoon for 5 hours. Went home, cried, and then fell asleep.
I just came home stunned. I just sat on my sofa and like didn't turn on the TV, but just sat there and like kind of stared at the wall for a while and went, "What am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna do?"
Was this the first time you've ever been fired from a job?
From a radio job. I got fired when I was a busboy when I was like 15, but I was also a pretty shitty busboy, so that probably had something to do with it.
You're like, you get fired and you're like, "You're making the right decision here, guys. I get it."
I shake their hand. Good on you. Good on you. No, but yeah, like the first like radio firing was that, and it was weird. It was when
You're your first and only so far.
Right. Knock on everything. Like I'm hoping. Like I've been doing this here. What I've been doing for I got hired in March of 2010. So it's been a while now, and I enjoy it.
If you got hired in 2008, you were out of work for a year and a half.
Out of radio for a year and a half. Yeah. In the meantime,
wow, I didn't know that.
I worked for the cable. I worked for Comcast for 6 weeks, which was the worst 6 weeks ever. And then after that, I ended up working for a company called Music and Arts Center. It was just a music retailer. I worked at their. I was a full time. It was a full time job, and I kind of liked it because while it was retail, which is sometimes difficult, if anyone's worked in retail, they know. But it was cool because I was at least working around like musical instruments and selling stuff to people who it was primarily like, I don't want to say entry level, but entry level, like people coming in for their first guitar, their first clarinet to take lessons in school or that kind of thing. And I thought that was cool because I wasn't as salesman-y as some of the other people there. I just wanted the person to get like something that they would like or something that they would want to learn or continue on. So we had sales goals and stuff, and I killed it in sales, but they said to me one day, "You're not following they had their little method for the way you're supposed to like probe people, their word, not mine, for sales." And, I just didn't do it. And I was in the top 5% of sales in the whole company. So I was like, look, when my numbers drop, tell me how to do things. And then I just did it my way and was able to kind of help people start out in music, which I thought was cool. Like some kid comes in, wants to play guitar for the first time ever. Like I was that kid, and I know more now than I did then. So I was able to kind of help them do that sort of thing. But I did that for a year and a half, probably about a year. And then I ended up landing where I am now. But originally I was interviewed to be a producer on a country morning show, that in hindsight, I was really, at the time I was really bummed that I didn't get the job. I'm like, I'm down to like the final 2 people for this job. It's definitely mine. And they ended up going with somebody else, which I was like, this is it. This was my last chance to be in radio. But, they gave me the line.
I think I know was it in the same building? Was it with, not POC, but what's the DC, the
MZQ?
MZQ, yeah. I was thinking of Q. I couldn't, dude. At 3.5 years, you move away. For 3.5 years, you stop thinking about those call letters and you can't remember them anymore. But
I don't blame you.
Was it with MZQ?
Yeah, it was. It was the morning show. Was called the Boxer Show. And,
yeah, because Boxer's producer, that was that guy was a straight abortion.
Well, he was there for a couple of years, and then he ended up leaving. I don't know
because of his contract. Like they did not want him there. Like after they hired him, there was a lot, from what I heard from a lot of people, of he was just a humongous screw up. I think his name, well, let's not say his name.
Well, let's not go down that road.
Yeah, let's not. You're not the catty type bitter catty type that I am, which you hear, you see, and read about all my complaints about former coworkers.
Oh, I follow you on Twitter. I know how it goes.
Oh yeah, I've been really letting loose here at work. Up here about my disdain for things. I'm really letting go, but I'm still also holding back so much. Like, example, this week, there's just garbage human beings that I work with up here, which is the worst part. I don't care how boring the job was. It's super boring. I don't care about that. The people I work with are just human filth. Like, somebody this week has been wiping their ass with paper towels and then putting it on the top of the trash bin in the bathroom.
Oh, that's foul.
Foul. Yeah. Why? All right. Look, if you got some kind of weird problem where you need a paper towel instead of the terrible low quality toilet paper they have, if you have to use that and you're like, all right, I can't put it in the toilet because it'll clog the system up and back it up, and then somebody will figure out it's me. Okay, I'm going to put it in the trash can. Don't put it on the top of the trash can.
That's so gross.
Bury that. Like have some semblance of decorum and hide it at the bottom of the trash can so nobody finds it. Like, there's a guy that comes to work every day smelling straight up like a hobo. Not like, hey, he's got a little bit of a body odor. No, straight up hobo smelling every day. Like, you have to hold your breath when you walk past him. Nobody says anything to him. And this is the thing. Not the first time this has happened. There's been multiple bosses apparently who had to have a conversation with him about his body odor before. At what point, when people say, hey, you stink badly, can you not do that? Do you not get in your head to go, oh, I'll wash my clothes and myself before I come to work every day? Like, what is going on?
That's so wrong. That's like the smelly kid in like elementary school. Like, you don't want to be that kid, but you don't want to be the smelly guy at work either.
No, you don't. Especially when on top, like, if you're like the cool, suave, like, awesome guy that everyone loves, but you just happen to have a body odor problem, that's one thing. No, nobody likes him either. Like, he's a misogynist. He makes fun of women every day. Only makes fun of women. Every day that the news station plays a clip from Hillary, you just hear him giggling, thinking to himself how many derogatory things he's going to say about Hillary Clinton. Which, again, I'm not defending Hillary because I can't stand her, but I don't want to hear him make fun of her just because he hates her because she's a woman. Ugh.
Now, maybe shit towel in the trash can guy is the same person.
Oh, no, I'm 100% convinced it's the same guy. I know that, but I can't prove it. And this is the worst part. Even if I say something to the boss, he's not going to do anything about it because he's too afraid of confrontation, for one. And this guy was supposed to be fired a year and a half ago, and they didn't because they didn't want to have to go through the effort of finding a replacement because they didn't want to lose the position. They didn't want to lose the manpower position, so they kept him on instead of just firing him and firing somebody. Actually, his job was eliminated. He should have been fired. What they did is they just took somebody else's responsibility and gave it to him, even though they didn't need to do that. They kept him on from being fired just because they didn't want to lose the man hours.
That's so weird.
And they didn't want to replace him, and he can't hold a full-time job because he's a fucking moron. Ugh. And he's not even the worst. He's not even the worst person at my job. Anyway.
How do you really feel?
Yeah, I know. I really went right on a tangent there. You know what? You don't hear all of it because I'm too lazy to type everything.
Wow. I mean, I don't really have too much to complain about other than the early mornings. I mean, granted, it's early, but I like what I'm doing. I just wish getting up at 4:30 in the morning doesn't get easier no matter how long you do it. Like, people, oh, how did you get used to it? I'm not. Like, let's see, I started in radio in 2003, and it's now what? So 13 years, right? So, and for the majority of that was mornings. So let's say 10, just to be on the safe side. I've been getting up that early for at least 10 years. And I'm not used to it. Like, nobody ever really those people who I pass when I'm driving to work who are out like jogging, what the fuck is their problem? Like, if you don't have to be up, why are you? And some days, like in the summer, it's already like 80 something degrees out when I'm leaving the house at like 5 o'clock. This dude's out running, which means he's probably been up longer than I have. And he's out. Now I'm off on a tangent. But anyway, I don't have that much to complain about the people I work with because everyone that I encounter like here now is pretty cool. Like there's inevitable the one sales guy who kind of gets on everybody's nerves or something like that. But the people I work with directly, I'm pretty lucky, I would think, that they're all pretty cool. I mean, since you moved away, everything's really gotten better. No, I'm kidding. But everything's pretty good.
By coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence whatsoever.
It was the same day. No.
But yeah, no, well, that's the thing about the sales. That's why I never bother to remember salespeople's names. There's two people in radio whose names I'll never bother to learn or remember. It's sales staff and interns, or sales staff and promotion people. Interns don't count either. So we'll say all three: interns, sales staff, and promotions. I don't learn any of their names because of the revolving door. They're likely to not be here the next time I see them, because I don't see any of these people every single day. I see them once every 3 or 4 months when something happens, or we cross paths, or I just happen to be in the building at a different time than I normally am, or I'm at an event, and I know the next time when these things come up, not going to see them again.
Or they'll think you're the web guy, like in my case.
Oh my God, dude. If I've had, and this is the worst part, sales staff are just arrogant people, which you kind of have to be kind of egotistical to be a salesperson, I guess. But like I helped with so many rebuilds at 1801 in DC, at our building in DC, of fixing people's computers, setting up their computers, and moving it for them when we're doing these builds, that I've done things for these people face to face. And by the way, you knew me. I had a mohawk. It's not like I blended in. I do something for these people.
Not at all.
No, I don't blend in. Even now that I don't have the mohawk, I still don't blend in. Like, I just don't fit into. I'm not background material. Unless the background now with a shaved head, unless that background material has to be a background extra in American History X, I don't blend in well. So I would do these things for them, and then 3 months later, they come back to me and they're like, "Oh, who are you? What do you do here again?" Like, all right, if you forget my name, that's one thing, but to not even know I work here, like, you can just fuck yourself, pal. Like, just crawl under your desk, and then I'll take it apart and just watch it slowly crush you in the head. Like, ugh. So that's one reason why I don't want to talk to them, because let's be honest, they don't want to talk to me.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean,
everybody's making money. They're happy.
Yeah, but the thing with your job is you come in the morning, you get there, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. You're done by 11. So by 11 o'clock, the sales staff has maybe been there for 2 hours. You're not on the same floor. There's very little to no interaction with them unless you go up to their floor, or in your example from earlier, they're doing a tour for some jerk off VIP, they're doing a tour. That's the only time you're going to cross paths with them. And of course, you're not a celebrity, so they can't go, "Oh, here, let me introduce you to Kane," or "Let me introduce you to this on-air person." So they look at you and go, "I don't know who he is," and not going to bother learning. They have the same attitude towards you and me that I have towards them. I don't need to learn who they are. They're not someone important.
There's so many people whose names I don't know that I feel like a jerk sometimes. They're like, or they'll say hi and I'll say hi, but I'm pretty sure neither one of us knows each other's names. I think that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and of course it's not looking at them and go up and like, "By the way, who's the guy with glasses in the studio right now?" "Oh, that's Scott. Scott runs the Kane Show," and they're not going to care enough.
He's behind the scenes. He's not important. Behind the scenes.
He's the guy that makes the show happen. He's not important.
Sound like my mom now. No, I'm just kidding.
Bubby, you're important to the show. You should tell them that. I don't know why I made your mom sound Jewish.
My wife is Jewish, so maybe it was her mom. That's who it was.
Oh, it was your mother-in-law. Okay. So, all right. You were out of work a year and a half. You applied for the morning show producer of the Boxer Show on MZQ, WMZQ in DC. You didn't get the job. They gave it to a guy who was infinitely worse. When did you hear from Kane about that job? Did you apply to Kane, or did they come to you?
No, when I didn't get that job, they initially said to me was, which I thought was kind of a blow off, but they're like, if anything we think you'd be a fit for, we'll contact you, which does kind of sound like a blow off, because I've heard that from other jobs before. "Oh, we'll keep your information on record, whatever.
Yeah, we'll keep your resume on file in the round filing cabinet.
Right, on the floor under the desks. And so I ended up going, "Okay, I appreciate it, thanks," because I interviewed, I think, 2 or 3 times for that job, and they even brought me in to meet with the host of that morning show. So I was like, "Oh, I got this." They want me to meet the guy and whatever. Well, turned out that didn't work out. So maybe a couple of months, 2 or 3 months later, I remember this vividly. I was outside walking the dog, and I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize, and I was like, I'm not answering this. So I didn't, and when I got back in the house, I had a voicemail, and it was from Kane, and it just said, "Hi Scott, I got your information from so and so. Would you be interested in coming in to talk about a new project I'm going to be working on?" So I said, sure. So I ended up calling him back. We played phone tag for like a day, and then we talked on the phone for a good while. And then he asked me, which kind of, it was almost like a curveball. He's like, "Can you email me, what's your philosophy on top 40 radio?" And I said, okay. And I don't really remember what I said, but I think I still have that email somewhere. So I'd like to go back and reread it now, 6 years removed, and see if it's still the same. But
what was your opinion on what? All right, let's go into that. If you don't remember what your opinion 6 years ago was on Top 40 Radio, what's your opinion on Top 40 Radio now? Like, what's your philosophy on Top 40 Radio? That's just a weird way to ask somebody, what do you think about Top 40 Radio?
I mean, I get it, because especially at the time, Kane was really like building his brand. He wasn't syndicated like he is now. He was on, I think, just in DC and Tampa at the. I don't think he was only doing mornings in DC at the time, and now we're on 11 stations in the morning. So I mean, 6 years later, I mean, the syndication stuff didn't start for mornings until about maybe a year and a half ago. But I honestly don't remember what I said, but I think now it's to be, I mean, obviously to be compelling and to make your listeners not feel like you're talking at them, but talking to them, and continue to do content that's compelling to kind of a not wider, but like a large group of people. So you don't want to be too pointed and specific in what you're doing, but you also kind of want to be able to speak to as many people and make sense to them as you can. But I think we do a pretty good job of that. I mean, it's entertainment at the end of the day. And there's some stuff that, people, "Oh, did you use was this scripted?" Well, some stuff, I don't want to say it's scripted, but it's like if you have an idea behind the scenes and you want to bring that to get your listeners to interact with it, like you might take an initial idea and kind of manipulate that to fit into your life. So when you're telling the story, it's relatable. So as long as you're relatable to your audience, I think that's the important thing. Now I sound like I'm interviewing for a job, but it's I think like Top 40 Radio, and then playing music that people like, or playing music that are the hits. Like, there's so many pop songs out now that are big hits that I might not necessarily be a fan of, but people are way into it, and that's what relatable content and music that people like. And as long as you're people who are delivering the content, who are presenting, whatever the bits and your jocks and stuff are good, then you'll be successful. And I think let's be honest, there's a lot of people out there who might have the formula right, but the execution's just all off, and their shows aren't very good. I think you kind of run into that sometimes with I don't want to say the smaller markets, because I don't want to talk shit about smaller market radio, but I mean, some people just aren't cut out to do it. Like, I couldn't host a morning show. I know I couldn't host a morning show, but like to do my own, like an afternoon type of thing or fill in work, I could probably swing that and make that work. But to do a morning show where the majority of your show is you talking and engaging your listeners and kind of keeping things moving so it stays interesting, that's damn hard. And it's a lot more difficult than I think people think.
No, yeah, I've been a part of it, and I know how difficult that is, and some days I wish I just had that challenge in my life. Like, I wish that could be I wish I had that opportunity to challenge myself and do it, but I also I don't know if I think I could do it, but I'm pretty sure logistically it wouldn't work out as well. Like, I think I can entertain a small group of people, but not a large group of people, and that's probably what's going to happen. Is I'll have like loyally dedicated fans, but such a small fan base that it wouldn't be worth them to keep it. But with my thing with Top 40 music is, I learned, because I've worked for two Top 40 radio stations. I've worked for two country stations. I worked for a gospel station. I am a hired gun for radio. If any station wants to hire me for something, I'll do it. I'll work for them, especially if it's like board hopping, like just simple stuff, that's fine. On-air stuff, I don't know, if it's an engineering job or board hopping, I can handle it and do it, not a problem if I have to hear the music. But to talk up the music, that was what was really hard for me. And I'm an old school punk rocker, so for me to work for Top 40 Radio, I had to give up a lot of myself to accept that and be afraid of some of the ridicule I might get from my friends. So I just learned early on, so I don't drive myself crazy, that music is subjective and that no one will ever feel the same way about a song that I do. So if somebody else likes it, that's fine because it brings them joy. If I think it's crap, that doesn't matter because it's only my opinion. So I've always tried to stick to the theory of saying, I don't think it sucks, I just don't like it when it comes to music.
And you hit the nail right on the head about it being subjective. And like one of my favorite like musicians is this guy named Butch Walker, who he writes and records and produces for not a lot of pop acts. Like he's worked with Katy Perry, he's worked with Taylor Swift, he's worked with like Avril Lavigne, but his own music is like 90s rock band. But he's kind of made his living now as a producer, but he writes so much stuff for other people. And I've heard him in interviews, people go, "Oh, why do you write your best songs and give them to other people?" And he says, well, there's a huge difference between a good song and a hit song. And that's something I kind of believe in, because there's some songs on the radio now that are huge hits that I just don't think are good songs. But like, he's right. Like, if I would kind of be offended if I was him, if people were saying, "Why do you give all your good songs to the other people?" Well, maybe you're not listening to what I'm doing for myself. Like, most of the music he does on his own records is stuff that means something to him or something that he's experienced. And like, that's, if you're not doing something like that, something that relates to you, then it all just sounds contrived. So for pop music, there's songwriting camps for people. They'll fly people to Hawaii and put them up in a hotel for 2 weeks, and there's 15 of them, and their job is to write the next, I don't know, Rihanna record. And that's what they're there for. We're going to pay you people a bunch of money. We're going to put you here. You're going to craft this record for this pop star, and then they'll just do it again for somebody else. There's a really interesting article. I can't remember what site. I think it might even be like an NPR website, but it outlines the whole writing process for some stuff that they were working on for Rihanna, and the cost involved with just producing and releasing and having a hit. It's pretty incredible to see what lengths they go to make that stuff happen.
Yeah, no, it's the music industry is so orchestrated, and from just my small side of it, working with bands and working with some, I did some consulting for a guy who was working for a major label, wanted to leave the label and start his own. So I did some consulting for him and his partners and stuff, like what artists that, like they basically, the way they wanted to start their thing was to be able to find the next diamond in the rough, the next Justin Bieber, or, the next Natasha Bedingfield, somebody who they could, for lack of a better word, exploit very cheaply and make huge. So I consulted from knowing music and knowing radio for them on what some of these things. And I learned a lot that I probably should have known going into it, but just saying things and talking to people and knowing things and listening to conversations, it's so orchestrated. Like, you could literally take anyone with the right amount of money and make them a humongous multi-platinum selling pop star with just a couple $1 million. You could do it with, 50,000. You could probably do it with 50,000. It's a lot more legwork and it's a lot less guaranteed. But the more money you put into it, the more a guarantee it is that they're gonna be a star, and it's gonna make you a ton of money. So it's a weird place to be in when you kind of realize that how manufactured the entire music industry is.
It's fascinating to see how the machine works from like the beginning to the end, from like an artist being signed to like having that hit on the radio. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just interesting to see how it all works and how people become, the stars now. Like, to be like, okay, let's say some girl who lives down the street from me, she's 21, she's cute and she can sing, okay, and she has a good song, but if she's not a star, or if they don't break her by the second or third single, pretty much it's over. But back in like the day, like even in like the 80s, 70s and 80s with the music industry, the mindset was if we don't break these guys by their second or third record, then it might be over. But now it's like the shelf life of something like that, especially for a new artist trying to get into it. It's pretty cutthroat. Like if you're a new artist and you don't have like at least a moderate hit early on, it's pretty much over. I mean, there's an exception to every rule, but for the most part, that's the way it kind of pans out for people.
Yeah, there's so much, impatience with the music industry now compared to a couple years ago. And now it's just, it's like the big wigs of the music industry have figured out the code. They're now able to read the matrix on how to make somebody a star and make money, to a certain percentage certainty. And
but like, so have a lot of other people. So you've got people kind of going the DIY. Like a few years ago, Macklemore was like the biggest pop star on the planet, a rapper, or whatever you want to call him. And that whole record that he did, it was called The Heist. It was an independent record. He didn't sign with any label. He just did it on his own and kind of through a grassroots, exploration of his fan base or whatever. And then it ended up being this huge record that labels were coming to him wanting to sign him, and he's kind of like, what's the point? Like, why should he did the record on his own. The promotion was all himself. He was a star. He was making money off of it. Like, at what point, what's the benefit to signing to a label at that point? So a lot of people are finding, like, I guess the secret formula, if you want to call it that, to not sign with a major label. And there's more kind of smaller independent labels that are still putting out good music, just in a different way from signing to like your Sony Music or whatever. So it's weird to see. I guess the technology and the way of going about it yourself has changed faster than the industry has changed. Like the method's changed, whereas the industry is still kind of on its heels a little bit, going, how do we adjust to this? And there's no right or wrong answer to it. Like, I don't know. If I was a big wig at, like, huge record label A, I wouldn't have any idea what to do. But I guess that's why I do what I do, and they do what they do.
Yeah. No, they're in position in control for a reason, because they figure out how to maintain that control and how that happened. So yeah. So Kane called you, said, "Did you want to be a part of the show?" Ask you what your philosophy on Top 40 Radio.
They brought me in to interview with Kane, and then the market manager at the time, who's now been promoted. I think she's overseeing a lot of stuff on the East Coast, Thea, who was nothing but great to me. I got nothing but good things to say about her. And
I don't have anything bad to say other than she hated me.
Oh, well.
That just added to another list of people that hated me. Yeah, no, it's not a big deal.
Another name on the list. But no, I interviewed with her and Kane, and they said they would let me know, and they offered me, I think it was like a Thursday, they offered me the job. She called me that evening and officially offered me the job, asked me if to let them know if I could think about it. I was like, no, I don't need to think about it. Let's do this. And I remember going into my job the next day at the music store and putting in, like, the radio station wanted me to start right away. But at the same time, I didn't want to burn any bridges working the job I had at the time, because you never know how paths will ever cross again. So I kind of met them in the middle. I gave a 1 week notice, and that was pretty much it. Like, I worked one more week at the music store, while also occasionally still going throughout that week. I think I went in twice to kind of help them prepare for the launch of Club Kane, the show we do on Sunday nights, because at that point it hadn't even started yet. And we kind of got that show together, and I've been with that show since day one, and now we're on like 9. We started on, I think it was 11 stations or 9 stations when we first launched, and we're on like 97 stations now. So it's grown a little bit over the last 6 years, but yeah, no, that's how it happened. Like, I ended up getting a phone call a couple months after I didn't get a job with the country station, which in hindsight ended up being a blessing in disguise, because that producer that they hired instead of me left. That morning show isn't on anymore, and
is Boxer done at MTQ?
Yeah, now it's Bobby Bones, who's syndicated out of Nashville.
Oh yeah, we have Bobby Bones up here. The station that they flipped up here to country is the Bull. They have Bobby Bones up here. Yeah.
So
that sucks for Boxer. He was a
I
really
don't know
nice,
what that.
You know what? Nice guy, kind of weird, but he was a damn good talent. And it's a shame he was stuck in the situation he was because the station and the company was holding his hands back a lot from doing stuff. Like, he was very successful at doing what they wanted him to do, but I think he could have been a lot more successful in other ways outside of that had they not been holding his hands back a little bit. Like, he was a really talented guy who was able to, just play the political bollocks of the radio industry and just do what they want him to do. But I think he could have done a lot more creative stuff. So it sucks that I'm sure he's landing on his feet. We could probably Google him and find out, but I don't care about him that much.
He's doing radio. I think he moved back home, and I can't remember where home was, but he's doing all right. And I mean, I don't keep in touch with him per se, but I'm friends with him on Facebook, and every once in a while, like, we'll comment on something on somebody else's page. But yeah, I think I wasn't real familiar with like the behind the scenes of his show, other than when I met him, the few times that I met him prior to, or when I was interviewing for the job. But always seemed like a great dude. Like, never, if he's been mad, I've never seen it. Like, he's always just like a really up kind of guy.
Yeah,
and,
no, he's very positive and very happy. That's probably one of the reasons why they left his producer on for so long, is because he just could not get mad enough. Like, he would get frustrated when the guy kept screwing things up, but he could never get mad enough to the point where he would fire him. And if he fired him, he felt bad. Like, he is just such a unfortunately overly nice guy, to that he was hurting himself and causing himself more work because he was too nice to fire a guy who was too incompetent to do his job.
Well, I've heard that, but I don't know firsthand about how things went with that situation. I know he ended up leaving. I don't know whose choice it was, but I mean, yeah, like, I guess with that show not being on anymore, I mean, yeah, I was super bummed that I didn't get that job initially, but I guess in looking back at it, the blessing in disguise, because I assume once they put the syndicated show on, I would have been moved to something else or possibly let go. I don't know. I don't even want to think about it because, I mean, that's not the way it panned out, but I'm lucky enough to be where I am now, working with a team that genuinely likes each other and has support from the people above them, which is kind of weird because it's not something I experienced at my previous station. Everybody on the show was a tight-knit group and liked each other, but the support from the powers that be was a little lacking.
Yeah, well, if you bring in enough money for the station, the powers to be above you will like you. But I will also say, from working alongside of Kane, when I was there, not as deep as you have, but I've done things, with him. He is a really nice guy, and you know what? He's a hard worker and he's talented. We have talks where let's spoiler alert. Let's let the secret out of the bag. War of the Roses is completely fake. Those callers are not real. It's all scripted and made up for the most part. Because I've actually done that job too. I've done War of the Roses for other stations now that I moved up here. They haven't called me in a long time to do a job, or emailed me about a job. But anyway, I find it to be the just worst, hackiest crap out there. Personally, I can't stand those fake, over dramatic, poorly put together radio plays, for lack of a better term. Those drama things. I can't stand them, and it makes my blood boil. And he does one, but he knows that it sells, and he's okay with it. And it does sell. I think I'm more mad that it's a successful thing than the quality that's put into it. Like, I get more mad that their listeners enjoy it than I'm mad that he actually does it. Like, I think I'm more pissed off that people enjoy it than it is that he decides to do it. That's my opinion. That I can't stand those fake things, even though I've been a part of them. And we were going to do them with Jackson. When I was helping out Jackson, we were going to bring in actors on demand to do voice calls. And one of the things we're going to do, let's do a Let's Date Deadair Dennis contest with those things. And instead of actually making me go out on dates with actual listeners, we would take 2 calls from potential listeners and then 1 fake call, and we would pretend that the fake call that I went on the date with the fake call, and then it would always blow up hilariously in my face. And it made me feel scummy that we never did it. We were talking about it, but it made me feel scummy thinking about doing it. But you know what? I would have, if they wanted to do it, I would have done it. Dude, we were going to do, an advice line, which all the advice line stuff is fake. Dude, didn't even, Dear Abby, I think, admitted on her deathbed that her letters that she published were fake or something like that. So, we were doing an advice thing for a while, which was, fake. We were toy doing a caller. We would have callers leave a voicemail and we would pretend to make a advice line for it, so I don't know. I think when you're in it, you just do whatever you can to make content because you're producing so much content every day.
As long as you're doing stuff people like. I mean, well, I used to have an issue, I guess, with certain bits, but like I think of it this way: like if I'm watching, I don't know, a TV show, pick something like if I'm watching New Girl, okay, do I really think Zooey Deschanel is living that life with those people in that apartment? Probably not. Like no, but like as long as people are entertained by something, I think it's got merit.
Yeah, I think it's that thing that, like, when I watch TV, I know TV's fake. When I hear a phone call, I should expect that phone call to be real. I don't know.
I get that.
It's no different than comedy. Like, I have I'm one of the things that bother me in stand-up comedy is when I hear a comedian try to keep when they keep saying, "I swear this really happened." It's like, dude, I don't care if it really happened. It doesn't need to be truthful. It needs to be funny. Number 1, needs to be funny. 2, needs to be believable. If you're trying to sell me on something that didn't happen, that would never happen, then I'm not going to believe it. Example, a comedian just at an open mic the other day was like, I got to stop telling women that I'm so good at eating pussy because then they just find out that I'm not and they're really disappointed. I'm like, no one's finding out that you're terrible at eating pussy. Nobody is finding out that. Like, nobody is sleeping with you because of that. Like, and I'm saying this in my head. It's just, if your premise becomes shaky and falls apart on me just going, no, that didn't happen, then it's not good. Like, so many people, like the dad bod thing. I listen to so many comedians at open mics go, so somebody told me yesterday I got a dad bod. Bullshit. And I'm not saying bullshit that they told this to you yesterday, because we all do that in radio. So this thing happened to me today. And meanwhile, it happened 6 months ago. And we just keep saying it every day for 6 months that it happened that day or whatever it was. No, nobody told you had a dad bod yesterday. That's not the lie. The lie is that nobody told you had a dad bod. You came up with a joke about dad bods and you want to tell it to us now. You can do a better way of telling me that than this crappy hack way of saying, so somebody says I got a dad bods and I says to them, like, no, they didn't. Nobody said that. And there's nobody in Boston that talks like they're a New York Italian guy who's selling pizza on the street. So I don't know where that voice came from, but
there's a lot of like stand-up comedy, man. That's I think even worse than playing music. Like if I go out there and I play a song that nobody likes, at least there's sound happening, if that makes sense. Like I'm singing and playing guitar. There's no awkward pauses in my song. Like if you go out there and you tell a joke and it bombs and nobody laughs and then you're on stage and it's awkward and it's silent, there's no, even if I wrote the funniest shit I thought that I could possibly write, I would not, like stand-up comedy to me is something that's even more difficult than going out there and playing music. I guess it's a different kind of difficult where with music, you have to know how to play guitar, know how to sing. But with comedy, you have to know how to write and know how to deliver a joke and have comedic timing. So they both have their art form qualities to them. Yeah. But man, there's no way you could convince me to get out on the stage and tell jokes for even 10 minutes or 15 minutes. No way in the world.
I can't see myself not getting on stage and performing or entertaining in front of people. Not that I need that limelight. I love just being a part of the entire process of entertainment. That's why I got into the radio. Nobody sees my face in radio. I'm okay with being a producer, being behind the scenes. I just enjoy creating. And now I'm getting to the age where I feel like I'm missing all my opportunities to become a talent. So now I'm pushing it. That's one reason why I did comedy. But the difference between comedy and music is we are all trained that when a song stops, we clap.
Right.
You don't have to be engaged. You don't have to pay attention to the song, right? It plays and then you clap. With comedy, you have to pay attention, and you have to be. It's a responsive thing. You have to return. You have to reply to the energy that was given to you. So when I tell a joke, you have to laugh on the other end, right? Even if you think it's funny, if you don't laugh, it sounds uncomfortable and awkward no matter who you are. And I try to get used to just working in silence sometimes because of whatever the room is or whatever the situation is. And I can do it sometimes, but not all the time. And it's the most gut-wrenching thing in the world.
Feed off that crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to feed off a crowd when you're playing music. You just play the music, and even if nobody claps at the end of a song, you just start another song. I'm sure it hurts a little bit, but it doesn't hurt as bad as going, chicken cross the road. Why did chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. And if you don't get that laugh, it's just... and
then what do you do? You're like,
so much.
So anyway,
yeah.
And then kind of transition and not try and sound awkward as hell making that transition.
Yeah, you can't just stop talking when you're waiting for somebody to, like, if I say, hey, how are you doing? And you don't say, oh, I'm doing fine. I can't just start talking again. It's the same thing as a dialogue. Literally, comedy is a dialogue between me and the audience, and the only thing the audience should do is laugh. The only response they should have is laughter. I've never actually put it in that context. Like we always say, when you're performing, make yourself sound conversational. Instead of sounding like you're talking at somebody, sound like you're talking to them. And I never put the connect to the other side, that the other side of that dialogue is their laughter. So that's something I'm going to have to say again.
And they have to be engaged, because if they're not, then it's like telling a story to somebody who's not listening. And then they look up at the end and go, huh? It's the same thing. That huh is no laugh from a joke.
Exactly. If it doesn't have to be, like I said, believable. It doesn't have to be truthful. It has to be believable. One of those great examples for me in my own comedy is I have this bit where I talk about the song Superstition by Stevie Wonder. I was listening to it in a car. Cop car pulled up, rolled down his window. I turned the volume down, said, sorry, officer. That's when he went, you don't know shit about Stevie Wonder. Cranked up Superstition by Stevie Wonder on his own radio, peeled wheels, and then drove away through the red light.
What?
Yeah. So there's that. That's a joke that a story joke that I tell people, and I go farther into it. But I was workshopping the joke with somebody, and he goes to me. One comedian asked me, he's like, "So how?" No, before he goes, "How truthful is that? Like, how true is that story?" Now the thing about it is, I just told it to you for the first time. You're surprised that it happened, correct?
Well, yeah.
That's your reaction. But you don't think for a second that I'm lying, right?
Well, knowing you, I don't know. But generally...
Well, the truth behind it is it's an exaggeration. Something similar happened, and I just exaggerate it to the point, because that's kind of what comedy is you take a situation and you exaggerate it to its believable extent, I guess. Or, if you're an absurdist, then you can exaggerate to its most absurd point. But, so the thing about the story, what the truth behind that joke is, I was listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers cover of Love Roller Coaster by the Ohio Players. Had that cranked up. Cop car pulled up next to me. Two cops in the car. One of them rolled down the window, and me and my buddy were just singing it at the top of the lung at the cop, and he kind of laughed, and he said something, and I turned it down, and what he said was, you boys don't know shit about this music. And I was like, come on, this is good stuff. And he's like, yeah, it's really good, but you're not old enough to know about it. And we laughed, and when they drove away a little fast, and it just a little bit of a squeal on the wheels, not peeling wheels and not through a red light. And by the way, the other tag to the joke is the only thing more badass that cop could have done was just fire off caps as they drove away. Like that's but that's still a pretty cool situation to have with a Baltimore County cop. Was that so? Somebody was playing Superstition by Stevie Wonder at an open mic. I thought about that story of the Ohio Players song and the Red Hot Chili Peppers song, and I just molded it and adapted it to fit the situation. So is it a lie? No. Is it an exaggeration? Yes. Is it believable? Yes. And I think that's fine with comedy to be believable or exaggeration.
License. It's like when I write a song, like I don't think everything that I say exactly in the song might have not happened, but if it makes a good song, then fine. So many artists do that. It's just you take a good idea or a good story, and then if you can mold it into something that's makes it better. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, no, dude. Remember, what's that song by? They have that song called Firescape, but that's not the song I was thinking of. They're super popular. They had the album called All the Drugs That Money Could Buy, or All the Money That Drugs Could Buy.
Yeah.
The Way is the name of the song. Yeah.
Fastball?
Fastball, yes. That song by Fastball. That was super popular first thing they had. That so many people thought that was about something about them that happened. And he's just like, no, I read a news story about how 2 people went missing in the desert, and I wrote a song about it. So you can write from a perspective that's not your own in music as well.
And people, if you can write from anything and make it good, or make people believe it, like I'm fine with it. Especially, I mean, hell, I do it with music, and you do it with comedy. As long as people either listen to it or come to the show or buy it, I don't care. I mean, most times nobody really asks me. I don't think anybody's asked me, what's this song? Well, people ask, what's this song about? And 9 times out of 10, I'll just be like, I come up with something to not answer the question. Not that I'm cryptic and mysterious and deep, just because I don't fucking feel like explaining it to you.
Oh, dude, my buddies have been in bands, and I'll tell them, oh, I know this song that you wrote is about your ex-girlfriend, so-and-so. He's like, no, it's not about her. It's about my current girlfriend. It's like we all still project and put our own things onto people's music, and sometimes you can't help but tell them what it is or help feel like it means something else. Because you're a little more with music, in lyrics, you're a little more artsy and obscure, right?
Sure.
In general, maybe
not
music.
all the time. I'm not writing like a Led Zeppelin song or Pink Floyd song about like the moon and unicorns and weird stuff. But sometimes like there's an analogy or there's a stuff like that. But
in lyric writing, it's a little more poetry, a little more imagery based than
absolutely
the way I tell jokes. So there is a artistic difference.
If you did a whole set in rhyme, I would be pretty impressed and still got the point across. It's just a different way of approaching an art form, I guess.
So, all right, let's go back to talking about Kane. So you're working with Kane. You're only working on Sundays doing his show. Well, you would come during the week and do phone stuff, but predominantly you just run the show on Sundays with him. When did he ask you? When did he ask you to be part of the morning show every day?
Let's see. About 2 or 3 years in, when the show started airing in Baltimore too. So it's probably the same time. A little awkward. The show that I work for replaced the show that you worked for. I mean, for lack of a better term, right? Like you were no longer on it and contributing to it, as far as I'm aware of.
Yes.
When Jackson left there and they put Kane on, but you
like how I waited 2 hours into the interview to mention that the audience that your job replaced my job after I got thrown off of it.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, like I ended up,
and we're friends. Hey, you replaced me, sort of.
Right. I didn't do it.
No,
like, I was
it's not your fault.
Part of the process.
Because even when they said they were bringing Kane up here, I said, "Hey, do you want me to do this?" Because it's the same exact job that I was doing for Elliot when we were a rock station, and we were broadcasting we were simulcasting Elliot in the morning up here in Baltimore from DC. I was running the show up here, not to the extent that you run Kane's. And I said, "Hey, when this happens, do you want me to do that?" And they went, "No, we're going to bring in somebody else to do it. We're going to have it all." No, actually, what they told me is going to be all automated because a computer can run a tighter board than a person. Bullshit. And bullshit to a degree for the most part. And then they brought you in up here. They brought you in Baltimore. So how did that pitch go down? Did they want to justify the money they were paying you, or?
Probably. I mean, to be real, probably. I mean, they ended up. How did I find out? Oh, Thea, who I mentioned before, who initially hired me, called me and was like, "All right, we want to talk to you about something." I was like, "Oh shit, what's happening?"
Never a good call to get.
I didn't say that to her. I just went, "Okay," probably real awkwardly. And she's like, "We're gonna put Kane on in Baltimore, and we want you to be still involved. We want you to be involved with that too. And I said, okay. She's like, so we're going to be doing this. I mean, the responsibilities that I do now have changed because the way the show was delivered's changed. But she told me what I would be doing.
Oh, wait. Did you guys change the delivery of Kane to Baltimore?
Yeah, to every place takes it via satellite, via like syndication, via.
Is it so? He's live now. He's doing it the syndicated way he should have been doing it from the beginning.
Every station that airs our show airs it live. Yep.
Oh, finally! What took them so long to get? Well, explain how they used to do it.
It used to be in like segments. Like he would be doing the show, and then other markets that aired it I would get like that audio and kind of edit it up and send it out to them. And everybody was pretty much an hour behind airing like I don't want to say pared down version of it, but some places wanted to play their own music or play more music. And so we would give them a almost condensed version of the show that they could plug in and run their own music instead of running everything that comes out of his studio. Like, so now any station who runs us runs our music and like runs the show in real time.
And you guys were also they would in the studio would record local news bits and local traffic and local weather stuff and send those to those cities as well too, right?
Right. Yep. Each station now has their own I don't want to speak for every station. I just know what we do. Each station there's a local traffic report that's not done by anybody on the show. It's like it's populated locally, and so that's every station.
That's where my company comes in. That's where the company I work for, the division I work for, comes in.
Right. So like that version or that stuff stays up to date, even though like the cities we're on, from Baltimore to Tampa to Concord, New Hampshire, like they're all getting the same show at the same time. So we get tons of calls all morning from, if he's talking about, tell us about your crazy roommate or something like that. A way more wide variety of calls coming from people. So like, yeah, so that's how it's delivered now. It's delivered like 100% live instead of like a segmented version of it.
Which is the way it should have been from the beginning, if you ask me. Like, that's not only the easiest way, it's the way we've been doing it for years. Or, like you guys are doing so much more work, I think, before. I mean, do you agree or disagree?
Yeah. I mean, there's still work to be done now. It's just it's like the old, like the cliche, work smarter, not harder. And that's kind of how we're doing it now. Like, though there's still work to be done, with the show. And I still edit a lot of stuff because on Saturday we run like a best of the week kind of show. And that's obviously not live, but there's editing to do with that. And there's editing to do with like when we put together content if we're on vacation or something. But it's there's definitely like, the way that we're delivering the show to affiliates now is definitely the best way, because it's just one link to Premiere Networks. Premiere is the division of a company that handles syndication. It goes out to them, and then they deliver it via satellite to anybody who wants to run the show. And
when did they start doing that? I can't believe you didn't tell me. Like, we talk every week. I can't believe you didn't mention this.
Yeah, well, that's yeah, right. That started about a year ago. That it's
Jesus Christ!
I think my concept at the time is completely warped now. It could have been yesterday.
It didn't just happen.
But
it didn't happen yesterday. Yeah.
No, and it didn't happen yesterday. It's probably within a year or so.
Jeez. Well, that's great. I mean, so you're still editing, content and putting it together, or is the satellite program running automated, or do you have to run the boards for that show now?
There's certain stuff we have to run locally. There's it's automated-ish for the most part. When I'm in the studio, I'm watching like the source, like I'm watching Kane's studio on one screen and then ours on the other. All of the commercial blocks have to be the exact same length, and sometimes, if you're running a 9-minute commercial block or whatever, if those 30-second commercials that, they might be 28 seconds, or they might be a minute and 1 second if they're supposed to be 60, that kind of stuff can add up. So you have to make sure that your commercial blocks are the exact same time. And it's a lot of like small moving parts behind the scenes to make sure it sounds seamless to, the person driving to work in their car.
Yeah, I had the same problems with when I was running Elliot. We were doing the same thing. I was getting the feed live, and I'd have to pad our commercial breaks to match his because he'd have like 6 minutes of commercials, and we were a new station in a smaller market. We couldn't fill 6 minutes of commercial time, so we would fill like 3.5 minutes, and I'd have to find a 2.5 minute song to fill. Or with, like you were saying, we may, if I'm lucky enough, maybe we're only 5 seconds off. So in the midst of our commercial break, I have to find a 5-second sound effect to put in between two commercials and tighten, and segue in between the commercials to play that. So when my commercial breaks stop, it stops at the same time as theirs, and I can rejoin them perfectly in time. So you're back to doing that again, which is the right way to do it. I can't stress that point enough. Like out of all of this, that's the thing that made me the happiest to hear that you guys are finally doing it via satellite the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, it's a more I guess not streamlined, but more effective way of doing it. And most of the time, like if if on my end it's a little off, like if it's this commercial block's supposed to be 9 minutes, it's 8.5 minutes. Usually, it's really easy to figure out like, this spot wasn't cut or this spot wasn't dubbed, or it's usually an easy fix. It's usually not like, I'm 3.5 minutes off. It's either like a 30, a 60, occasionally like 5 seconds. Then you just throw like a little bumper or sweeper in there. It's easy to do. You just have to pay attention to it to make sure it doesn't sound like a train wreck. Because if it's 30 seconds short or 30 seconds over, if it's 30 seconds over, you're coming back in the middle of the show 30 seconds late. Or if it's 30 seconds short, you've got more problems on your hands. So, I mean, there's a lot of little moving parts, but at this point, I've been doing it long enough that I know what to look for like right away. And it's even if it sounds funky sometimes, if I miss something, which rarely happens, but I end up like getting really pissed at myself. I'm like, I should have caught that or should have seen that. But luckily for me, that doesn't happen frequently. Hopefully, I didn't just jinx myself.
You're going to go back to work on Monday and everything's going to fall apart. But all right, are you still running Kane on Sundays live? By hand, rather? Not live, but by hand?
Well, yeah, that I run from our Rockville studio, and then it goes out to satellite. So it's weird because during the week, Monday through Friday for the morning show, I'm technically an affiliate because the shows run out of DC and we're taking the show from the feed. On Sundays when I'm there, I am the origin source of it. So it goes from me to Burbank out to all of the affiliates. So I'm running it live because I'm the source of the show. So anything I do in that studio producing that show on Sunday nights, if I screw something up, it's not just on the one station, it's on all of them who are airing it. So I don't want to say it's a different type of execution. It's on Monday through Friday, I'm the affiliate. Sunday, I'm the source. So it's a different way of thinking to put it together to make sure it's going to run right on all of those affiliates.
But they still haven't gotten to the point where it runs all by itself and you don't even need to be there, which is one thing that we used to talk about all the time, that you could just package out the show to where it runs by itself and nobody needs to watch over it. But
no, that's not a thing.
No. Never going to happen. They're going to keep. Well, I guess it's job security that they need you there. I mean, it ruins your vacations, though, but.
There's been vacations where during my wedding, shortly before going to get married, I had my laptop open and I was checking on things because something was wrong. I was in Jamaica for a friend's wedding last January, sitting weirdly in the lobby where I could pick up like the faintest Wi-Fi signal trying to fix something that was wrong. There's never been a vacation I've been on where I haven't had to do something for the show, where I haven't had to, hey, something's wrong, or hey, can you fix this, or hey, can you look at that? And I mean, the guys who usually fill in for me are great because they 85 to 90% of anything they need to do, they can do. But there's always usually a question, or I have to fix something or look at something. But again, job security, like you said. At least I hope so.
Well, the other thing about it was, like we talked about it, is how many of your vacations you had to come home on Sunday to run the show, and instead of just staying out for the couple days, or you'd have to wait until Monday to start your vacation because you had to run Kane on Sunday. There's times where you took weeks off and you took days off from the weekday morning show, but still had to go back and run the thing on Sundays, which that's just kind of annoying. I would think.
I mean, yeah, especially sometimes, especially like during Christmas time. Like I'll usually take the week, I'll take like 2 weeks off, like Christmas and New Year's, like the weeks of like from the usually like the 20th to the 1st or whatever.
Yeah, same thing that they usually take off.
I don't
anyway.
even try and take off on Sundays. Like I just know like I'm going to be off Monday through Friday, going on Sunday. Off Monday through Friday, going on Sunday, because it's easier. It's more work and a bigger hassle for me to try and get somebody to fill in and go through all that stuff than it is for me to just go in there. But like there's been times when I was in like I was out of state for my sister-in-law, well, now sister-in-law's wedding. Well, obviously I couldn't not go to that, or I'm trying to think of some other stuff that I've had to go to. Like, it's just, it's easier for me to be there than it is to try and get everything situated and good to go for somebody else. And that's no disrespect to them, because I appreciate it, but I've been doing the show for 6 years. Essentially, I've taken off 6 Sundays over the 6 years that I've been doing it. So, there's been it's just easier for me to go, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to go in and do it.
Yeah, understandable. So, all right. So you're doing the morning show. You're basically working 6 days a week with running Kane stuff. How many, the syndication for the morning show has been growing. How many stations is he on now for the mornings? Because he's 97 the Sunday show's on 97 cities across the country, and he's on 11, did you say?
Yeah, we just picked up a station in like the Hamptons in like New York, so that's our 11th right now.
Oh, good. That's not bad, because I think the company's grooming him to be the next Elvis Duran. Like when Elvis retires, he's going to take over all the stations that Elvis is doing. And the fact that I've known stations recently that have flipped formats, or they've gotten rid of morning show, top 40 stations that got rid of morning show, and then started with Elvis Duran. It's like Clear Channel stations, iHeartMedia stations. Excuse me. iHeartMedia stations that have gone with Elvis Duran's like, what are you doing? Like, theirs is, you're going with a station, with a show that does not have long to live. No offense to Elvis Duran. I think he's terrible, but he's not going to be in this business much longer, because he's going to have to retire sooner or later, or at least move to a format that's not top 40, because he's just getting old, and that happens. So why not just go with the new hotness that is like, I will say this, Kane show, much better than Elvis Duran show. Why not go with the newer, better show? But it's up to them. Sometimes you just want to go with what's a winner. Like, Elvis Duran has proven to be a winner. So, I don't know.
Oh my God, yeah. Like, he's been in the business forever, and he's been based out of New York for such a long time. Like, is Kane the next in line for that seat? I have no idea. I hope so. That'll be awesome to be.
It's not a definite, but I believe that.
I mean, it would be great. Like, I don't know. I have no idea what their plan is, or what. I mean, I'm sure Kane has his own agenda, like what he wants to do, and I mean, you kind of have to. You have to have a direction that you want to work in. But I mean, Elvis has been doing that there for a long time, and he's been super successful. Will he go to like a not pop format, not top 40 format? I have no idea. But he's
Oh yeah, I brought up a lot of things that are speculations at best, so I get it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and he's I'm not even sure how. I guess it's not about age. I guess it's about like relatability to the audience. I mean, if he's still killing it, there's no reason for them to I guess move him otherwise, unless he's like, you know what, guys, I'm done after this. But
yeah. So anyway, so you're doing that. You're doing that 6 days a week. You're playing out. You got your solo project. You got the band. Band's putting together a new CD. You're in a good place right now. I think we both agree that you're in a place where you're happy, work wise.
Yeah. Work wise, I'm happy. Like on a personal level, I'm happy. I'm married, have a wife and a cool dog, like we talked about before. No kids, because that's awful. And it's not having kids isn't awful. I think having kids for me would be awful for multiple reasons. One, I can barely take care of myself at 35, let alone a small helpless being. So there's no way. And
yeah, I
we're
say
just
all
not
the
in
time.
the place where we want children.
I say all the time that I should not be I should never be in charge of the life of another living being. Like, I should not, I love dogs, I love plants, I love taking care of plants, I love gardening and landscape and stuff like that. I don't own any plants because I should not be in charge of those. I don't own pets because I should not be in charge of those. I'm supposed to, like, as soon as I finish up the phone with you, I'm going to go spend 2 hours with my former roommate's dog to go walk the dog and hang out with the dog for 2 hours before I go do something else, because I can only be in charge of something for 2 hours. If I have to be, if it has to be responsible, if I have to be responsible for its life forever's not going to happen.
For a very limited time. For a limited time, got it. Like, I have a niece, right? My sister-in-law has a kid. She's 3, just a little older than 3. She's cool when she comes over. She likes to come down to where my studio is, and she wants to play the drums. She'll come over and she'll go, "Can we jam?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." But she wants, I mean, it's not, she's not a good drummer. She's 3, but she wants to come over and play music. I'm like the quote-unquote cool uncle, but you know, to have my own kid, like, that's just not cut out for me. But yeah, like, I'm in a pretty happy place. Like, I like the work I'm doing with the shows, both the Sunday and weekday show. I'm not a huge fan of working 6 days a week, but the alternative, like, to not working at all, you know, that's I'd rather be doing what I'm doing now. You know, I wouldn't get up ass early 5 days a week to do something I didn't enjoy. And playing music when we can. What
I want to know is, you're in a comfortable place where you're happy, everything's going well. What would need to change, or what would need to happen for you to change? Like, what would it take for you to need to like walk away from Kane Show or to quit music?
You know what? I'll never quit music. Like, even if the band breaks up and people tell me they hate the songs that I write or whatever, you know, I didn't get into music to make money, or, you know, initially any kid who picks up a guitar wants to be a rock star. Like, they'd be lying if they said otherwise. But even if I never play another show for anybody ever again, or anything with music, I'm still going to write songs. I'm still going to play songs and sing songs, even if it's to the 4 walls of my living room. So I don't think, short of like getting both of my hands like cut off, like, that's the only way that I would stop playing music. For radio, for anything to change with that, like, I don't know, like,
and
unless
even
they
then,
told
even
me
if you
that I was...
Even if you lost both your hands, you would try to figure out how to play the guitar with your tongue, right?
I would somehow make it work. I wouldn't be able to sing at the same time, but I would do something to somehow try and make that work. But for radio, I mean, unless the show got canceled or moved to, you know, I wouldn't think it would move to a smaller city. Like, I would think if we got some sort of promotion, like you were talking about, like if you think we end up in New York or something like that, that would be, I'm totally for that. But I mean, for me to change what I'm doing now, unless they fired me, I wouldn't have much of a choice. But I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing now. Or if they're like, "Oh, we're gonna cut your pay by 40%," then maybe I would have to think about doing something different. But honestly, as suck uppy or lame as it sounds, I don't really see any reason for me to want to change anything right now.
That's good, dude. I'm happy to hear that. So I'm also happy that we got to have this chance to get you on the podcast and we could talk about it. We had to do it over a phone, but
but it worked.
It worked, yes. So, all right, Scott. Great. It was great talking to you. Good luck with the
Thanks,
with the band Letterbox. If people wanted to, let's do it now here on the podcast so I don't have to figure it out from you later when I post this episode. If people want to check out music from Scott Lester and What Army, other than clicking the link in this post to hear music from you, where else can they go to hear your music?
To check out the band, it's letterboxmusic.com, and then all the pertinent links to our Facebook and SoundCloud and all that kind of stuff are there. And then also, if you search on SoundCloud, Scott Lester and What Army, I think that's the link I gave you, that will take you to the solo project. So I got all my bases covered that way.
And what's your Instagram so people can look at the lovely, adorable pictures of your your fluffy, cute little Chinese crescent?
It's Scottstagram. It's SKOTSTAGRAAM. Somebody stole, like, Scott Lester is used, but it's like they don't have any pictures. They have no followers. It's just, they're just like sitting on it. So I'm kind of pissed about that.
Yeah, they parked on it. Ugh. Well, somebody's doing the same thing with Deadair Dennis on Snapchat, so I have to be Deadair_Dennis, and I would be mad if I cared about Snapchat, which I don't. So, all right, buddy.
All right, man.
I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, buddy.
And there you have it, my interview with radio producer, musician, and good friend Scott Lester here on So What Do You Really Do? It was some deep radio talk and some deep music talk, and I hope you enjoyed all of that. If you want to check out more about Scott, you want to check out about his music, go to the links that he had said before, Lester and What Army on SoundCloud, and check out the band Letterbox. Links will also be on the website, deadairdennis.com/podcast, so you can go right there and easily click to check out more music from Scott. I'm going to be doing a couple things coming up in July. We are in the middle of Radio Month, so we got two more episodes of Radio Month coming up. But by the end of that, I am doing a couple shows. July 6th, I will be at the Burn in Somerville. It's a 10 o'clock show. It's a late show. It's kind of an open mic, but I'll be doing some real material, maybe some stuff I'm working on. It's going to be a good, fun time. And then also on the 7th, I am doing the Tony V Show at Laugh Boston, and later that night at Improv Boston, I am doing at 9:30 the Naked Comedy Show. It is not on my website, deadairdennis.com, because I'm not advertising. I'm going to be there telling jokes naked, but I will be there. You guys are going to be the only ones that hear about that if you listen to this podcast. So if you want to hear jokes and you want to see me naked, Improv Boston, July 7th. That's the place to be. And of course, on July 9th is Jamaica Plain Porch Fest, JP Porch Fest. I am really excited about that because we're doing a comedy show outside on a porch for JP Porch Fest. If you don't know what Porch Fest is, it is an amazing, fun thing. Basically, everybody in that neighborhood. We do one in Somerville. They do one in Jamaica Plain. Philadelphia does them. A bunch of other neighborhoods across the country do it. Basically, artists and musicians and performers of all types get together and they perform on porches throughout the neighborhood. You can just walk around and see everything and experience everything. And we are doing a comedy porch. So if you are in the New England area, July 9th, Jamaica Porch Fest. And we're going to end this podcast with one of the songs from Scott's solo project, Scott Lester and What Army. I can't thank Scott enough for doing the podcast the way that we had to do it through over the phone and then recording it and sending it to me. And, you know, providing me with music for the podcast and then providing me the song for you guys to hear. So if you like this song, please check out more about Scott's solo band, Scott Lester and What Army, or his current band, Letterbox, on the internet. Guys, thanks a lot for listening. Please, again, also subscribe if you can on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, whatever you're listening to. And also give it 5 stars and a review because it helps people to hear. If you're friends of Scott and that's why you're listening to this, please do that because more people who see this podcast from reviews, the more people are going to hear his music and share it. So I appreciate it. Here's a song from Scott Lester and What Army. It's Sunsets and Car Wrecks. I'm Deadair Dennis, and this is So What Do You Really Do?
Hospital cold in winter. Doesn't have to be snow outside for me to feel that way. No. Emotions go unfocused. I find it hard to notice who I plan to be. Hello now, here's my heart. Pull my inside out to you, so you know how I love you now. There's nothing more. Picture books and faded signs, but without you, life unwinds down. Black and white, I can't tell my up from down. Morning gets confused with night. I feel the air inside these lungs as I slowly breathe it out. I finally found a road to follow. Finally, there's no doubt. Hello now, here's my